And I'll wait for you to give me the green light, Ben. It says we're streaming live at the corner of my screen, but I don't know if that means we're up on YouTube yet.
Good to go.
Great. Okay, well, good morning and welcome to the Joint Standing Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Technology. My name is Seth Berry. I'm a state representative from Bodenham and the House Chair of the committee. We will be discussing our committee rules today, our response to the supplemental budget proposed by the governor, and last but not least, we'll be hearing from a set of interested parties who will expect to appear before our committee over the course of this session. So we'll begin today, as always, with committee introductions, and I will just ask Mr. Freck to go ahead and call out the names of committee members to introduce themselves.
Sure. Senator Lawrence, are you with us? There we are.
Yes, I am now, and sorry about that. And just as an aside, Ben, I saw the link came from a different source today.
So there's like the initial panelist email that I send out, and then there's an option to resend the link. So that's what I use, but it's the same panelist link.
Because it didn't come to legislative email.
Oh, that's the address it has for you.
No, I meant it didn't come to we have a separate legislative email box as opposed to an inbox. So I don't know if that's happening to everyone, but I'll just look for it in the future to come to the other inbox.
Okay.
So I am State Senator Mark Lawrence. I'm the Senate Chair of the Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee. I represent Southern York County, which is made up of 6 towns, Kittery, Elliott, South Berwick, York, and Ogunquit. Why don't you go on, Ben, around the horseshoe.
Senator Vitelli.
Good morning, I'm Senator Vitelli. I represent the 10 towns in Saginaw County and the town of Dresden in Lincoln County, District 23.
All right, and Senator Stewart.
Good morning. I'm State Senator Trey Stewart, representing Senate District number 2. Funny, we just talked about this in the pregame show, including 51 communities in Southern Aroostook and Northern Penobscot counties, including the illustrious town of Fort Fairfield, home to the Maine Potato Blossom Festival. I'm going to go have another cup of coffee now.
Representative Berry.
Thanks again. I'm Seth Berry, state representative from Bodenham. I also represent Bowdoin, most of Richmond, and beautiful Swan Island on the Kennebec.
Representative Cuddy.
Good morning. My name is Scott Cuddy. I represent House District 98, which is Winterport, Frankfort, Searsport, and Swanville.
Representative Grahowski.
Audio issues.
Yep.
How about this? I just checked the setting and it was the way that it worked yesterday, but that didn't work today. Nicole Grahowski, State Representative for House District 132, which is the city of Ellsworth and the town of Trenton and home of the Cider and Cheese Festival.
Representative Kessler.
Good morning. I am Representative Chris Kessler, District 32, which is the middle portion of South Portland and a little smidgen of Cape Elizabeth. And I can't think of any festivals this morning.
Representative Ziegler.
Good morning. I'm Representative Paige Sigler. I represent District 96 in Modo County, the 7 towns of Belmont, Liberty, Lincolnville, Montville, Morrow, Palermo and Searsmont, and I'm just 2 districts down from 98.
Representative Wood.
I'm Barb Wood, and I represent House District 38, which is the western end of the peninsula in Portland.
Representative Wadsworth.
Good morning. I'm Nate Wadsworth. I represent Freiburg and surrounding communities, home of the world's greatest fair.
And Representative Foster.
Good morning. I'm Steve Foster, representing House District 104, Dexter, Garland, Stetson, Exeter, and Charleston.
And Representative Carlo.
Good morning. I'm Representative Carlo, representing District 16, which is Buxton, Hollis, and a part of Saco.
Okay, thank you.
That's it, Ben?
That's it.
Okay, great. So show of hands, is there anybody who did not get the agenda today? Great. And does everybody have a copy of the proposed joint rules? Proposed committee rules? Okay, I'll just go over briefly kind of how rules are structured, especially for the new members. I know all the returning members know how committee rules are structured, and then we'll just see if there are any questions or things you want to go over on the rules. So for Nathan and Barb, you probably heard this in orientation. Maine is one of the few legislatures in the country that operates under a joint rule system. So since 1820, we've had joint committees between the Senate and the House, and that saves us from having to introduce one bill in the House and one bill in the Senate and have Senate and House committees pass them and then try to reconcile them later on. So this system works very well for us. It increases the strength of the committee because if we can work out the differences in the committee and get a unanimous committee vote, it strengthens our ability as the committee to move the bill through the legislature later on, because we've resolved most of the differences between the House and the Senate in committee. And the committee structure is set up after the abolition of the Executive Council. The committee structure is set up to kind of carefully balance the difference in the, to equalize the relationship between the Senate and the House. House has 10 members, Senate has 3, but you'll see in the committee rules and the joint rules, there are various procedures designed to equalize that balance. So the committee rules are what is recommended by leadership for the committee. If we want to make certain special changes, I believe, Deirdre, the procedure is we then submit them to leadership. Is that not correct?
Yes, we would put the amendments within the rules, submit it to leadership, and the POs can accept or reject the changes or accept them with additional clarifications.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions about the standard committee rules? Does anybody have any changes they want to suggest or anything they want to discuss?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Actually, I'll defer to other members first. I see someone else has raised her hand. Representative Grahowski.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Grahowski.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Chair, I just want to point out that these rules will bind us for 2 years. So although we're probably doing most of our committee work in a virtual fashion, we should be thinking about what it will be like to be back together someday, I hope. And in that note, I recall that we made some changes to the committee rules regarding food and beverages during committee hearings, and those are reflected in the rules that Deirdre posted from 2 years ago. And I would ask if this committee is willing to entertain those rules. I know that sometimes we are in there for many hours and people want to drink coffee, or they want to drink a soda that has caffeine in it so they can stay awake, or they want to eat a little snack. And that was something that we were able to manage as responsible adults, I believe, last year. And I think that we shouldn't be stuck to only drinking water.
Yeah, I don't think there were any barbecues last year in the committee, at least not of food. Any other discussion about that proposed amendment to the committee rules? Representative Barry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would concur that the rules that we adopted for the 129th are still apt. I think we made some appropriate changes there. Those are they're available as one of the items in case people don't have it in front of them. One of the items at the link that Ms. Schneider posted at the top of the chat. So I would be inclined to support making those same amendments to our committee rules in this legislature. And in addition, I think it might be appropriate to amend those rules further in section 7C. 7C refers to written materials being handed in with 20 copies. And I think in this day and age, written might be entirely electronic. So I think just to be clear, it would be best if we just said written in hard copy. You know, if materials are going to be handed in hard copy, then they need to be 20 materials. I agree with Representative Krahowski that we hope to come back to an in-person format and to be using paper again. But I just want to make sure it's clear that our committee clerk does not need 20 copies if people are submitting testimony online. Otherwise, I think those are very appropriate amendments that we made last session.
Deirdre, I see your hand raised. Did you have a technical issue you wanted to raise? You're muted.
I thought I unmuted myself. The only thing I wanted to raise that during the 129th, the committee amended section C, paragraph E, and removed the last part of that sentence that said a committee member who is the primary sponsor of a legislative document and any member who testifies for or against the legislative document ordinarily should refrain from questioning other witnesses. So the intent there, I think, was to allow sponsors to question witnesses, but when the POs came back and approved the rule, they made changes because I think a lot of committees submitted variations of that rule, and they had specific language that they provided when they did the approvals that sort of said they shall refrain from questioning except as authorized by the chair to allow a sponsor or member testifying to ask a clarifying question. So I think the amendment, I don't know how it would be treated this year if they were going to go with the same stance on that piece of language. So, I mean, you could submit it with that amendment again and see how it goes, or you could amend it to be consistent with what was approved during the 129th.
And I have Representative Kessler and then back to Representative Barry.
Thank you, Senator Lawrence. I wanted to inquire on, let's see here, under D, section E, providing reasonable access for persons with disabilities at its meetings. I haven't heard anything about access for the deaf, and if we are actually going to be able to meet that requirement set forth in the rules.
Deirdre, do you know, or Ben, do you know where LIO is on access to the hearing impaired to our Zoom meetings?
I haven't heard anything yet. I don't know if Ben has.
For specific hearings, if LIO receives a request, we can arrange an interpreter.
There was some talk about captioning though, but I don't know if we're there yet.
It's not reliable.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think there's a certain amount of time of heads up that LIO would need, obviously, to book somebody, but that is, you know, the person just has to contact me and I'll send it up the line.
So it sounds like, Representative Kessler, that LIO has anticipated this and has a plan on how to deal with that access. Does that satisfy your concerns?
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out.
Okay. And I see Representative Berry, then Senator Stewart, then Representative Ziegler.
Mr. Chair, I do think that the rules that when I was referring earlier to the rules that we used last in the last session, I was referring to what was actually approved by the presiding officers. So I hope that's helpful to our analyst. The other piece is just an observation. Adopting these rules is important. It's just for the benefit of new members in particular. As Representative Grachowski mentioned, these are the rules that we will live by for the next 2 years. So it is very helpful to you and very empowering to you to know those rules. It's often said that the best way to make it, to make yourself influential in the legislature is to know the rules. And just as an example of that, I will generally be deferring to Senator Lawrence to chair these meetings. That is the first rule in these model committee rules, as you may note. In his absence, I would be chairing, or if he just needs a break. But if Senator Lawrence, as the chair, as the presiding chair, were to determine that I were out of order and to rule that I was out of order, perhaps then I would need to amend my ways, or my other choice would be to appeal the ruling of the chair, which would mean subjecting his ruling to a committee vote. So concretely, if I were using people's, if I were calling people names rather than using their proper title, which is a violation of Rule 7B, if I were not posing questions through the chair, which is a violation of Rule 8A, if I were asking about things that were entirely irrelevant to the topic of the bill that was the subject of a public hearing, violating Rule 7E, if I were refusing to vote, which would be a violation of Rule 9F, then Senator Lawrence could rule me out of order. I could appeal that to all of you, and you would be the arbiters of whether my behavior was, in fact, in keeping with the rules or not. It's important to know this because I have, in my years of chairing committees, I've seen only once, fortunately, have I had to rule someone out of order. In that instance, they did not understand that they could subject it to a vote of the committee. So I feel that that's an important provision. This is not a dictatorship. We rule essentially by consent. This is consent of the governed. So if I'm chairing, you can always appeal my decisions to the committee. The same goes for Senator Lawrence or anyone else that holds the virtual gavel.
Thank you. Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question in regards to when we changed the joint rules to capture the fact that we are referencing bills without ever voting on referencing bills. And the process is supposed to essentially be that the chairs and leads get together and they look at the bills that are sent there. Are they okay? Yep. Okay, great. We're moving on. If not, then we'll, appeal to the other or to the presiding officers. My question is, do we need to adopt any process for what those meetings look like in these rules, in the committee rules? Or can we, I don't know if it's necessary. I don't believe it's necessary. I don't think we've had a meeting yet on those bills yet, but do we want to do something like that, or just let it just sort of play out?
So Deirdre, I'm going to ask you to technically explain, because I know the committee rules were updated to be in alignment with the changes to the joint rules for COVID. So can you just answer that and kind of go over how that situation is dealt with?
Yeah, I don't think you need to amend it through this process. The COVID addendum was to address specific functions of the committee as a whole. I believe that process for re-referral, I think there was going to be some guidance from your superior offices on how that should be done. And I think it's a little less formal of a process than sort of public hearings and work sessions done in that arena. So I don't think you need to do that. I haven't heard of any other committees doing that. We haven't been given any directive to require the committee to address that through this process.
Does that answer your question, Senator Stewart?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Thanks.
Okay. Representative Ziegler?
Yes, I'm sorry to go back to Representative Kessler's comment regarding captioning. Am I correct in saying that the YouTube output will be captioned? This is a constituent issue. I'm on the Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and I thank the representative for bringing this up immediately. So is that what's going to happen?
Deirdre or Ben, do you know the answer to that?
I don't believe it is. That's something I can bring to the attention of my office, though.
Please do, because it really does. We don't allow a segment of the population access if we don't have closed captioning underneath. Thank you.
Representative Ziegler, so I just have the question, if we're doing a in-committee room hearing like we were in the 129th, what would happen in that situation? Was there closed captioning for that on the recording or something, or?
No, there was not. The only way to get a sign language interpreter is to go through the process of requesting one. And I think the worries about the closed captioning on YouTube is it's going to be very unreliable if it's not monitored. So I think we're still working through that.
So essentially the access to the hearing impaired is similar to what it was in the 129th. Okay. Well, hopefully Representative Ziegler will have some improvements coming from LIO now that we're on Zoom to do some kind of closed captioning down the road. I don't know, but the question will be when we go to back to in-committee hearings, how does that affect hearing impaired access at that point? And what can be done there to accommodate those issues when we get back to the regular in-committee room hearings. Any other questions about the joint rules? And I will echo again, Deirdre.
I just want to ask one clarifying question on Representative Berry, on your piece about the change to the submissions of 20 copies. You were speaking to make a change for when you're back in the room, so that if somebody submitted something electronically and they came to testify, they didn't have to bring paper copies and bring 20 paper copies. Is that correct? I just want to make sure, because the COVID addendum does address sort of the copies in a virtual world. And I just wanted to be clear on your change you were suggesting for the rules if we're going to be meeting in person in the future at some point.
Representative Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So does the COVID addendum override the committee rules that we'll be adopting today? Because as I read the rules that we would be adopting, they do specify that written materials, and it's not clear that they're in hard copy, it could be any written materials, must be handed in with at least 20 copies.
So the COVID addendum applies while we are meeting electronically, and it notwithstands that requirement. So it's notwithstands the committee rule, the model rule. A person presenting written testimony to the committee is not required to provide the clerk with 20 or more printed copies. So I just wanted to be sure that your change, I understood you one way and Dan had messaged me and he understood you a different way. So I just wanted to clarify that you were not suggesting changing the rule so when we're in person they don't have to bring 20 copies, and you were just thinking of it in the virtual world, because if you were thinking of it on the latter part, it's taken care of in the COVID addendum.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yep, Representative Barry.
So in that case, I appreciate the update there. I was not aware of the notwithstanding piece, and I think that takes care of that concern. So that brings me back to favoring the amendments that were approved, that were made by this committee and approved by as they were approved by the presiding officers in the 129th.
And I would concur with Representative Barry, but I would suggest, Representative Barry, maybe we want to make a suggestion to the presiding officers that they address this issue. We can do it in an aside letter or something, that they address this issue when we go back to the regular meeting, whether or not we can adopt a rule to say electronic testimony can be submitted without it having to be 20 copies. Do people on the committee, are they comfortable with the chairs suggesting the presiding officers to get their opinion on that so we can see if that's an appropriate rule to adopt? Any objections to that? Deirdre, you have an objection?
Not an objection, just so if somebody submits electronic testimony to the committee, there's no requirement that they provide you with 20 copies. It's the idea that if someone comes in and testifies and has testimony that they may have some copies to hand out, they must provide 20 copies. Sometimes people come and testify and they don't have any copies of testimony and they're not required to go and get 20 copies. I think it's just if they're going to be bringing copies to hand out, they need to provide the clerk with 20 copies. They could submit electronically now. They could submit electronically if you're meeting in the future and just come in and said, I submitted my testimony electronically. You should have received it and give that. And I don't think that they are bound to have to give 20 copies. At least that's the way it's technically worked in committees since I've been in on there. Maybe the rules could be clearer per se. But I think it's mostly just in the context of if you're going to come to the committee with copies of your testimony, then you have to bring 20.
And I kind of always interpreted it differently, Deirdre. My interpretation was always if you were showing up to testify, you needed to bring 20 copies. And I think maybe we just ought to have that clarified. Representative Foster.
Thank you, Senator Lawrence. My understanding of part of the reason for doing the 20 copy thing in committee when we're there is so that others who are there observing or testifying have access to that material when they may not have something with them where they can access it electronically. So I just bring that up as another reason for having the copies available to not only the committee but also attendees.
Good point. Representative, I'm sorry, you're done, right? Representative Foster. Ben, you had a comment?
Yeah, if the chairs are going to write a letter to the POs, it's probably best to address the access for hearing impaired in that as well, because it's probably going to have a financial component to it. And I don't know if LIO can make that decision on its own.
I have Nicole, Representative Grochowski, and then Representative Kessler.
Thank you. I just wanted to just weigh in or share that I was poking around on the other YouTubes of other committees, and I noticed that sometimes there was closed captioning and sometimes there wasn't. So my guess is LIO has been turning that on sometimes and seeing how successful it is. There is an automated function, but as we all know, when we see it on TV, it can be quite bad. So I think they're probably trying to protect members in the public from misrepresentations, though I understand it's very challenging. I just wanted to add that it looks like they've been testing it.
Representative Kessler and then Representative Wood.
Thank you, Senator. I just wanted to speak to that closed caption comment. It's just my opinion that we should definitely take advantage of the free closed captioning service that is available. I think it's important to just recognize that it's fallible sometimes, but it's certainly better than nothing and certainly better than incurring great expense for something that we can already access. So that's the third copy.
Representative Wood?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just want to, as a new person, somebody can testify at a public hearing by just getting up and speaking. They don't have to provide a document. Is that correct?
So technically, if they're presenting testimony, they need to present 20 copies of it to the committee. But we have had people in the past who have testified and not presented anything. But we do have the Representative Grohowski request that they submit it in writing. And the reason why that is not all of us have expert memory. And when you hear multiple bills on multiple days, it's good to have a physical copy to go back and refer to. Have I stated that accurately, Representative Grohowski?
Yes, I often request that especially paid advocates provide written materials, via email and ideally through the online testimony system. And the second reason for that is not just our memories, but that it's a very valuable tool for our colleagues to understand the decisions that we've made in committee. I sometimes am on the House floor researching what advocates said or what the agency said on a bill on a committee that I wasn't in. So it's part of creating a public record, not just for us, but for the entire world to see how we got to the conclusion that we got to. So that's why I'm very passionate about especially paid advocates presenting testimony that is in hard copy. I am very generous with the public because I think it's already a lot to ask for them to come to the State House and testify. So I'm never demanding of the public.
Okay.
And their volunteer time.
Representative Wood, does that answer your question?
Yeah, the very end of what you said, Representative Grohowski, made sense. If somebody showed up because they had an interest, not because they were a lobbyist or an advocate or an agency, but they just got there and said, hey, I have something to say, we wouldn't prevent them from speaking just because they didn't have anything in writing.
No, that's not done, and that is very rare. Representative Wood, when that happens. But there is also the ability after a person testifies to submit it in writing later on. So, and I will point out that one of the reasons I always stress the written testimony is rightly or wrongly, and I perhaps lead on the wrongly side, in legislative interpretation by courts, looking at the meaning of the statute, they will often refer to the documents that are submitted to the committee that end up in the state library, state archives for interpretation of what was meant by certain language in the statute. Deirdre?
I don't know. I don't want to belabor this point at all or be contrary, but when you read the model rule, it specifies that all written materials presented to the committee must bear blah, 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 blah. Persons submitting written materials shall provide the committee clerk with at least 20 copies. So I think that a person, under the way the rules are written, if they're not submitting written materials, they're not technically required to provide 20 copies, that every person testifying has to submit it. I mean, yes, the preference is we definitely want the written materials because it's easy to go back and look at, but I don't think the way the rule is set up is actually requiring that. It's just specifying if you are submitting written materials, then you definitely need to bring at least 20 copies for the committee. But otherwise can testify, not provide written testimony, and not bring 20 copies. And I mean, that's the way committees generally have run it anyway, but I don't mean to be contrary or sort of be difficult. I read that very differently, the way the language is structured.
And I would agree with your interpretation, Deirdre. That is the way the rule is written. Representative Berry, did you have something you wanted to say?
I'll defer. Representative Wood has her hand up. I'll defer to her if she's still. Nope, she's done. Okay, so looking back at those rules, I think my initial concern is that kind of brings me back to that finer point, what Ms. Schneider just said. So the way it reads now, under item 7 of our rules, pursuant to Joint Rule 307, all written materials, it doesn't say electronic or hard copy, all written materials presented to the committee must bear the name, address, and affiliation, if applicable, of the presenter and the date presented. So that would apply to, things that are posted online, presumably through our new system. And then it goes on, persons submitting written materials shall provide the committee clerk with at least 20 copies. And at least 20 copies is in italics. So that's where I stumble, because written to me doesn't say electronic, it doesn't say hard copy, it just says written. And it just seemed inelegant in this electronic day and age to not be clear that we're talking about hard copy. So I think what would be simplest, and obviously the presiding officers could accept our suggestion or not, or our request. But I think what would make sense is to simply say person submitting written materials in hard copy shall provide the committee clerk with at least 20 copies. To me, that would just be better instructions for the public. It would make the request clearer, and it would sidestep the sort of the new system where we're submitting things electronically.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is, and I see Representative Grochowski, your hand is up. We've got proposed committee rules. We've got several amendments that were done in the 129th. So I'm going to suggest we go through and we have a vote on each one of these, since we are the 130th, and we need to make a decision on each one to adopt them to the committee rules, and then we go ahead and adopt the committee rules as a whole. Representative Grochowski.
Thank you. And I don't want to belabor this section anymore. I agree with Representative Barry that would make it more clear. I would pose to this committee the idea that maybe we not just ask for the address, which is really helpful in determining where someone lives in the state, but some sort of either telephone or email contact information. Because I know I spent a lot of time last year trying to track down lobbyists even who didn't put a telephone or an email, and I'm not really interested in sending them a letter in advance of a hearing or a work session the next day. So maybe we might add that, knowing that not everyone will follow it, but that it's sort of an ideal 21st century edition.
Okay, so are we ready to start voting on amendments to the committee rules? Is there anybody who has something else they want to add? Okay, Deirdre, do you have a handle on what are the changes we're going to be going through?
I believe so.
Okay.
So let me just do it in some.
Let's do the first one.
Okay, so the first one would be in section 6 of the committee rules under smoking and eating restrictions, amend paragraph C to specify that committee members may consume food or beverages in committee rooms at the discretion of the chairs, and remove 1 and 2 from that paragraph. So that would be the first change.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt that change? Moved by Representative Barry. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Kessler. Any debate or discussion? Okay, I'm just going to ask for a show of hands on this, so I can tell who's voting which way. So how many are in favor of adopting that change to the rules? Okay, I see it's unanimous. Great.
Senator Lawrence, may I jump in?
Yes, Ben.
Deirdre, is this just a procedural vote, so we don't need audio vote?
So we're voting not on a bill this time, but just on procedural.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I think it's fine the way they've done it.
Okay.
You think we need a voice vote on this?
I think it's fine. We can visually see you, and everybody who was counted was visual. So I think for the purposes of this, where it's a procedural vote, not on a bill, this is fine.
If we were voting on a bill or an amendment to a bill, I would ask for a voice vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So what's the second change,
So-
Deirdre?
The second change would be in section 7 on procedures for public hearings. And the suggestion is to change it to match the language provided by the PO's last session. So the last sentence would say, a committee member who is the primary sponsor of a legislative document and any member who testifies for or against a legislative document shall refrain from questioning other witnesses except as authorized by the chair to allow the sponsor or member testifying to ask clarifying questions. So that was, you had changed it differently, but that was the language that the POs provided.
Okay. Is there a motion that this change be made? Representative Barry, is there a second? Representative Grochowski. Okay. And just for information of the two new members, there had been a long-standing rule in the legislature that if you were a co-sponsor or a sponsor of the bill, presenting the bill, you got up and testified on it, that you could not then question essentially the people who were opposing the bill, opposing your position. And this amends that, and this leaves it in the discretion essentially of the chair. Any debate or discussion? Representative Grochowski.
Thank you. I think this is really important in a committee as technical as this, because sometimes the person presenting the bill is the only person in the horseshoe that knows the details, that they can ask really good questions of the other people presenting testimony. And certainly it's not meant as a way to have an extensive back and forth, but sometimes we all benefit from the most expert person asking the best questions.
And yes, Representative Cuddy.
I agree with what Representative Grochowski just said, but I also, in sort of like in a legislative intent fashion, I'd like it to be clear that for myself personally, this has to be something that is done extraordinarily sparingly. There's good reason for this rule to be in place, and there are times when it is going to be very important for this to be able to happen. But I just, for myself, if I'm bringing a bill in front, I will be very sparing if I ever use this.
Other comments? And I will comment as a chair, and Representative Barry can state how he sees it too, is the purpose of the rule originally was to prevent an argumentative situation from developing in the committee, where the sponsor presents the bill and then people get up and oppose it, and the sponsor begins arguing with them before the committee. So I would interpret this as illustrative questions, bringing out points, bringing out information about they may be presenting. But if it turns into a debate between the person sponsoring or the person co-sponsoring and the person testifying, I would say that was not the intent of the public hearing. And so I just want to let people know kind of that's how I would look at it. And I would look at interpreting this rule and applying my discretion as chair. Representative Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would concur with that characterization and agree with what's been said. And in the spirit of offering bipartisan advice from my hard-earned experience, I would also suggest to everyone, particularly new members, that sometimes asking a question of an opponent of your bill just gives the opposition a whole lot more time at the mic. So keep that in mind as well.
Any other debate or discussion on this provision? Okay, show of hands, all those in favor of adding that to the committee rules? I see it's unanimous. Any opposed? Obviously none. Okay, Deirdre, what is next?
The last one that I'm aware of is section 7, paragraph C. This is referring to the submission of written materials, and it would be changed to say person submitting written materials in hard copy shall provide the committee clerk with at least 20 copies. I might also suggest maybe adding in there, like, that is testifying at the public hearing. So it's, if you're submitting the written materials in hard copy at a public hearing, then you need to submit 20 copies, because I think you could still submit, maybe you would mail it in hard copy written material, and you don't want somebody to think they have to mail in 20 copies. So I might just clarify that further if that's okay, but that's the last one.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt that rule? Representative Berry, is there a second? Representative Kessler? Okay, any debate or discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, now we're back to adopting the joint rules with those 3 amendments and with the so-called COVID addendum. Is there any debate or discussion on the joint rules, on the committee rules? Okay, and I do want to go back. I think Representative Berry made a good point about the balance on the committee and the process of the chairs presiding. And I will just say, if any member has a concern about the way I preside or the way the committee is run, particularly the leads, if you have a concern, don't hesitate to any time to give me a call and we can discuss it. The one caveat I would give to what Representative Berry says, it is appealable. A decision of the chair is appealable to the committee, but the ultimate resolution of any committee disputes is the presiding officers. And the reason for that is the joint rules, the way they're set up, automatically create a numerical imbalance between the Senate and the House. And it's designed, and that's one of the reasons why the Senate chair always presides. It's designed to try to cure that numerical imbalance as much as possible. And this will come across not so much when in a session like ours, where you have the 2 chairs of the same political party, but 3 years ago, I was the House chair of a committee, the insurance committee, and the Senate was controlled by the Republicans, the House was controlled by the Democrats, and the balance of procedure within the committees was very, very crucial. And clearly the way the majority of the committees had a majority of Democrats on the committee, since the Democrats controlled the House. The committee I was on was one of the committees they compromised on and gave actually the majority to the Republicans. So you can often have, under committee rules, different parties presiding between the Senate and the House chair. And the committee rules over time and the joint rules have been adopted very carefully to allow both the Senate and the House to have equal balance in the committees, despite the numerical balance. Any other questions, debate, discussion of the committee rules? We do have a member of leadership here, Senator Vitelli. Have I said anything wrong, or is that your interpretation too of the committee and the joint rules?
I believe you stated it quite well, Senator Lawrence, from what I know. I'm new to this leadership role, but that's my understanding as well. Thank you. And I apologize, I'm going to have to step away for a leadership meeting.
Okay.
Thank you for your work.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt the committee? Did we already have the motion, Deirdre? Yes, we did.
The motion to adopt the whole committee rules as a whole with the amendments. I'm not sure we had a first and second on that yet.
I thought we had Representative Berry and then Representative Kessler. Do you remember, Ben?
That was on the last amendment. So that was on the amendment to section section 7, paragraph C.
Okay. So let's have a motion, Representative Berry, to adopt the committee rules with the COVID addendum and the 3 amendments we have made to them. Is there a second to Representative Berry's motion? Representative Wadsworth seconds. Any debate or discussion? Show of hands, all those in favor? And any opposed? Okay, I see it as unanimous. So we've got that part done. Now we are going on to, I'm just looking to bring up the agenda. Next on the agenda, Deirdre, is what?
The supplemental budget.
Okay.
Work session.
Okay.
And we have Dan Burgess, Melissa Winnie, and Peggy Schaefer on standby here if you have any questions on the specifics of the proposals in the budget.
Good. And generally, how we've done it in the past for new members is to have our analysts go through each and every one of the sections we need to vote on in the supplemental budget recommendations. So I'll have Deirdre present it. We'll have a motion on whether or not to adopt it, and then we'll have any debate or discussion, and then we will vote on that particular piece. And that will be then a recorded vote since we're voting on legislation. So Deirdre, do you want to start walking us through the supplemental?
Yes, so the first piece is the Connect Maine Authority Fund. And this initiative would provide a one-time funding for an enhanced broadband mapping tool project. So it would be a $1.8 million general fund appropriation. It looks like from the information provided that 1.5 million of that would go towards the mapping tool, and 300,000 would be used to support grant operationalization, technical evaluation of projects, and audit processes. So that's the first piece on the report back sheet that is before you today.
Are there any technical questions for Deirdre on that proposition? Okay, and just as a reminder to members, we are in a work session. So we do have Dan Burgess, Melissa Winnie, and Peggy Schaefer, but they are not allowed to testify unless an individual has a question for them. So I'll first ask for a motion whether or not to essentially move in or adopt that section. Representative Barry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move in the section. I'm sorry. Are we dealing with the whole piece right now, or did we just put one item before us?
We put one item before us. Deirdre, do you want to repeat what that item is?
Yeah, it's the Connect Maine Fund. It's the initiative to provide one-time funding for an enhanced broadband mapping tool project, which would be $1.8 million one-time general fund.
Thank you.
Appropriation.
Thank you very much. I moved that in.
Okay, thank you. And you should have that document in your information. Deirdre, is it possible to do a screen share so we could see that?
Sure. I think I still have it up somewhere. Hold on.
That might be easiest, especially for the new members to kind of visually follow it along. Okay.
Does everybody see that?
Yes. Can everybody
Okay.
see that? Is there anybody who can't see? So we are, and I'm going to ask you because we're not on the full screen. So if you want to speak or something, just unmute yourself and say something so I can see. So this is how, when I refer to sections, each one of these is a section, and Deirdre will be walking us through those, and we're going to have to vote. We're going to have a vote on each individual one. So Representative Barry has moved this in. Is there a second? Just unmute yourself and second.
Second.
And that was Representative Wood. Any debate or discussion? Representative Wood.
I have a question, Mr. Chair. In the, what do I want to say? On the committee page, I printed out the document, but this document looks slightly different because it shows the justification, which was not on the document that I printed off from our committee page. And I'm having a hard time on my computer screen reading the print on the justification. I didn't know if possibly Deirdre could just read that.
Sure, and I'll clarify too. So when the budget's posted, after you go through the public hearing, we receive from the AFA committee a report back document, which is this document. That's also posted on the committee webpage, and it includes the justifications for all the initiatives in the report back, so the committee has that information before them. But the justification for this is this initiative provides funding for a subscription to a broadband mapping tool that will assess broadband infrastructure throughout the state to determine the location of gaps in broadband service and estimate the cost of broadband implementation in these gap areas. This tool will improve infrastructure expansion for broadband and will facilitate the most efficient investment options for broadband expansion. Additionally, this funding includes $300,000 to support grant operationalization, that's a tough word to say, technical evaluation of projects and audit processes.
Okay, I think, does that answer your question, Representative Wood? And then I think Representative Foster had a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And as with Representative Wood's question, that's, I believe, the first time I understood about the $300,000 part of this. But I would just say, we have a $15 million bond that was approved. I think my questions were answered the other day, or I had an opportunity to ask questions in the previous committee discussions on this with the Connect Maine representatives in regards to making this money available for this purpose. I still believe that due to the state's current fiscal situation, that we should be able to go to the people who are bidding for those $15 million worth of projects and expect that they would help out with this mapping. Therefore, I'm reluctant to support this, which would represent, in addition to the $15 million, it would be approximately 10% of the total, which obviously, looking back, maybe we should have added that into the bond package for a public vote. But thank you.
Any other debate or discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Representative Wadsworth.
Yes, I will be joining Representative Foster today, opposing this motion. Someone who supported the $15 million broadband bond last March and was sitting on the AFA committee at that time. I just don't feel like this belongs in an emergency supplemental budget where we're trying to stabilize the last biennium budget because of, just due to coronavirus. So I will be opposing this. Thank you.
Any other debate or discussion?
I would like to say something, Mr. Chair.
Representative Grochowski.
Thank you. I just want to go on record and say I'm really torn about this, and I haven't made up my mind. The reason being, and maybe someone can explain, but I think a tool like this is maybe something we can't bond for because it's not probably considered infrastructure that is an investment that maybe somebody can explain if this is appropriate thing to bond for. So I understand why it might be here and outside of the bond. I agree with Representative Foster that it's really inappropriate in my mind that the private sector come to the state for funding to help support their ability to not lose money or to make a profit on an expansion without giving us something in return, such as this data. If in hindsight, I would have put a bill in to say that if you want state funding, you must share your data. I'm not sure if we can do that at this point. I do think the $300,000 to support the work of getting that $15 million bond out is really important. So I'm sort of inclined to support that $300,000, but not the $1.5 million. As much as I love maps and I make maps for a living, I'm not sure that we need these maps in order to get that $15 million bond out. We do need them, I believe, for the long-term planning. Broadband is a top issue for me and for my constituents. So this is really a tough choice for me, but I'm leaning toward proposing a sort of a middle way here to make sure that the 15 million goes out and we support the Connect Maine Authority in that work, but that we think a little bit harder about this tool and the data that we need for the tool. And I know that the Connect Maine Authority has thought very hard about this and that this is probably a frustrating experience for you all because this is the work that you do every day and we come in and weigh in, a few times a year and probably don't know what we're talking about as much, but I'm just really stuck on the fact that we have private sector that is apparently not partnering well with the state, but asking for funding from the state. Thank you.
So Representative Grochowski, did I understand that you were asking a question of whether or not this could have been legally bonded, this expense?
Yeah, I would like to have clarification
Is that
on that.
directed to our analyst or members of the committee, or are you directing it to somebody in the audience like Ms. Schaefer.
I suppose we could start with our analyst and see if she knows.
Deirdre, do you know?
I'm not 100% sure, but I do remember at the hearing for the supplemental budget, there was a discussion that said operational needs can't use the bond money. So the mapping was an operational need. And so under the money that was already received, they couldn't utilize it. But I'm sure Peggy could probably be much better at answering that fully than I just did.
Okay, so I will pose the question that Representative Grochowski asked to and invite Ms. Schaefer to answer that.
It is not bondable. Bonds are something you have to hold on to for like 10 years, right? It's a piece of infrastructure. And this is a map. This is a broadband analytics platform. That's what this is. This isn't mapping. It's a GIS base, but it's an analytics platform. So it provides us with the tools that we need both to assess the projects that are coming in for this 15 million and also to prepare and access the projects that might come in for significant federal money. It also helps us figure out with communities how best to put them in, sort of which federal slots might be available for funding or state slots. It gives us an idea of revenue to be generated and cost that right now people come in with a proposal. We actually don't know how much a project should cost. And this gives us the tools to figure that stuff out. So it's really about data analytics, not mapping.
Thank you. Other debate or discussion? Representative Berry? You need to put your mic on, Representative Berry.
Thank you for that reminder. That first reminder today. I'm sure there'll be others. Thank you. And Ms. Schaefer, I guess I want to just kind of pursue the line of discussion a little bit more with respect to the sharing of data and the need for this data analytics tool. I understand that it's much more than mapping, and I think that's helpful, and also that it can't be bonded for, that it's really about using that that money, that 15 million intelligently and not willy-nilly, so we get the best bang for our buck, having this data and this analytics tool. But I also share the frustration that has been voiced around the refusal to share in more granular broadband mapping from the private providers who often benefit from our public dollar effort to close the funding gap, to make projects pencil out. I know you share that probably more than anyone, because it makes your job a whole lot harder when private providers refuse to share the data that we do need to make intelligent decisions. So I guess I just want to ask you straight up if we should not, in addition to accepting this proposed piece of the supplemental budget, we should not also further amend it to simply require that all providers who accept Connect Maine dollars must share all of their data statewide. Would that be an addition, which, I mean, it's a policy matter and maybe something that should be taken up as a separate legislative discussion, but help me understand what that might do.
So two things.
Okay, I'll recognize Ms. Schaefer to answer the question from the committee member.
So two things. What you did a little bit of this last session when you required them to provide additional data, and also you did a big thing, which is you flipped the data from us declaring it confidential to the companies to it automatically being confidential. That sort of helped the companies around the confidential piece. The real issue is that companies don't actually have the street level data about who they serve and who they don't serve and there's a lot of technological reasons for it. There's a lot of practice reasons for it, but just think of it this way. It's not their business per se to know exactly what customers have and what they don't. That's not data that they track, right? So they track whether you paid your bill. They track where their network is, but they don't know at the granular level, really. And this is nationwide. They don't know this at a granular level, who they serve and who they don't serve. And again, it's really about, so when we get a request from somebody who said, you know, so-and-so is a half mile from my house, it takes them a couple days to sort of figure out, do we serve them? Why don't we? And so this is not, it's not data they have like available. They have to dig it up. And that is because it's not their telecommunications company. They're not a mapping company. So that's a piece around them providing a sort of the accurate data piece. I will say that the FCC is moving to this faster, better broadband mapping piece, which is about, it's instead of being by census block, it is by essentially polygons, and there is a sort of a fabric layer to that. But again, this tool is not solely about who has service and who doesn't, right? This tool is a data analytics tool to help us determine what is the best places for state investment to go. What is the revenue stream? Where is the hole that the state revenue or federal revenue should pay? How do we help communities develop the plans that they need to expand service? So this is really about giving us some of the same data analytics tools that every other industry sort of has to work with that we do not have. We are sort of flying blind, and this is an attempt to fix that.
Representative Grochowski, debate, discussion, questions?
Question first, if I may.
Okay.
The question is for Ms. Schaefer. For this tool, the $1.5 million, I'm trying to understand the breakdown of cost. Is that the cost for a one-time purchase and support for what period of time? Is it including getting the data that is missing in there? What is the sort of platform cost versus the operational cost?
So there is a licensure cost for some data around this company called CostQuest. That is sort of an annual licensure. But most of this is the essential basic work that a company would have to do to provide us the information that we need in a format we need it in.
Okay, Representative Grochowski, did you have anything else?
Yeah, I just have to say, in my professional background, I'm really struggling with a lot of what is posed by these companies. We have technology, we have tools I can use in an instant to geocode an address, a physical address where a bill is mailed, and I can do that in seconds. From my house, I could do it right now during this committee hearing. It is not complicated. We teach introductory GIS level students these skills. I had a Spectrum person come and knock on my door to ask me why I'm not buying Spectrum from them anymore. So they know where I am and what I'm buying. So I'm really just expressing to this committee that I'm afraid that there is Kool-Aid being poured, and I am, for one, not comfortable with drinking it. And I would like to see us be a little tougher with these companies who I do believe know or could access tools quite easily to know exactly what they're providing. And secondly, I'm concerned that we have companies taking this much money and in charge of such a critical infrastructure that don't recognize where their infrastructure is.
I have Representative Foster and then Representative Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two things, if I may. One, I agree with Representative Grochowski. I know that for my $60 a month for my Spectrum internet, they know, and I've talked to technicians at the end of my driveway exactly where I am, what I have for service, my GPS location, so on and so forth. That aside, go back to the $300,000 request. I don't recall, and I supported the $15 million bond package when it came through committee and with my private vote at the polls. I don't recall ever hearing that we are going to need to come back to you and ask for $300,000 in order to implement it. And that is a concern. Also, I assume that this is not a request for added positions to do that work, because I believe in the process, those would have been listed as such. But I would just like confirmation of that as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Schaefer, I believe he asked another question of you regarding positions.
This is not a head count. This is paying for technical support. So one of the things that we did when we had the Kids Connect thing, I mean, we had to get that money out quickly, right? And Tilson volunteered to come in. We met with them twice a week. They looked over all the applications. They determined whether the expenses were appropriate. They helped us a lot on the wireless application. This is sort of a continuation of that process to really look at our applications. And the big piece about this is an audit piece at the end. We're spending $15 million. And I think that we need to know that what people said they were going to build, they did build. And that is a big piece of this, of that technical support. You know, when New York did this, they had $500 million and they spent about 3% of the funding to do an audit process. And I just think that, you know, it's interesting that you are not happy with well, anyways, I just think that it's an accountability piece for taxpayer money that is a good idea.
Other debate, discussion? Representative Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I should clarify what I'm really not happy with is the fact that we had committed to this $15 million bond, and we did not look ahead and realize that we were going to need money for the audit piece to make sure that the money was spent wisely and that we got everything we had asked for or were told we would get for that money. That's something that should have occurred back when we were asking for the $15 million bond, and not after the bond money has been approved, in my opinion. Thank you.
Other debate or discussion? Representative Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, you know, I have been frustrated for years, at least the 14 since I first came on this committee, about the lack of full, granular, mappable disclosure by our incumbent internet service providers. And it is a national problem. The requirement to report only by census block showed my area as having service in all 3 of my zip codes back in 2007. It was only this past summer that we actually did reach all of the people in those 3 zip codes. And actually there's still one person, a farmer, who does not have access to any high-speed internet options. Spectrum wasn't calling me. Spectrum wasn't calling the several hundred constituents of mine who did not have cable running down their portion of the road, because they weren't interested in providing service in that area. And it works to the advantage of the incumbent to just keep things the way they are. In practice, what happens when Connect Maine comes forward, or when a community approaches Connect Maine and asks for a planning grant, in practice, what happens is the community is showing that it's serious about bringing broadband to the entire area. And then, and only then, do the incumbents start to get active and come to the table and provide information, and usually say, oh, yes, we've been meaning to cover that road. We've been meaning to build out to that area. And all of a sudden you have, I mean, this happened in one of my communities. One of the ISPs, who I won't name, said, oh, well, you're engaged in a Connect Maine process. Guess what? We're going to cover this entire area. And if you pay us a little more, we'll do the whole thing. So that is in the end what happened. And it's really the smaller Maine-based companies that typically take advantage of the Connect Maine opportunities and work around the edges in the rural areas, providing internet where it just wouldn't pencil out otherwise for the larger national ISPs. So I just want to kind of, offer that reminder that what Connect Maine is doing really is supporting Maine businesses, Maine jobs, and bringing service where it just would not otherwise go. And the reason that we are, by some measures, last or second last in the nation, especially at the very high speeds for rural penetration, it is that we've just relegated it to the private sector to do what it does, and that hasn't worked. So, I think it is important that we have tools that can really bring all the participants to the table. I think that this data analytics tool will help to do that. Will help to make sure that people are accountable, that they are on the same page, and that communities are empowered with this information to leverage private investment, to put forward municipal investment where they feel it's appropriate to do so, and also, yes, to make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck with the state bond. But we can only bond for infrastructure. We can't bond for planning, right? So if you don't, and failing to plan is planning to fail. So if we're not putting some effort towards supporting the technological information, the technological knowledge that allows these investments to be done well, then shame on us, right? We're not going to get what what we're paying for. One last point that I'll just remind people of is that we did support in a previous iteration of this discussion last year. We did support the mechanism that provides this funding. I think there was a little bit lost in translation through no one's fault in the appropriations process, and so we can go back over that history if it's helpful. I'm not sure it's critical right now. I think people want to know about the tool and is it worth it, and that's probably the most important discussion. But my recollection from last year is that we did support the concept of the funding that would meet this need. So I just want to offer that reminder up as well.
Any other debate or discussion? So a motion has been made by Representative Berry to move this in, and I forget who was the second. Was it Representative Kessler? No?
Representative Wood.
What's that?
It was Representative Wood was the second.
Thank you. And seconded by Representative Wood, that this section be moved in. Any other debate or discussion? And I just ask Ben if you would call the roll.
Senator Lawrence.
Yes.
Senator Vitelli absent. Senator Stewart is not here as well. Representative Berry.
Yes.
Representative Cuddy.
Sorry, my cursor was a long way away from the mute button. Yes.
Representative Grahowski.
No.
Representative Kessler.
Yes.
Representative Ziegler.
Yes.
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative Wadsworth.
Nay.
Representative Foster.
No.
Representative Carlo.
Yes.
So my count is 7 members having voted in favor, 3 having voted in opposition, and 3 being absent. The motion prevails. Deirdre, how many more budget items do we have?
Just one more.
Okay, so we will be doing this last budget item, and then I believe we're going to break at 10:40. And moving on to, we have people scheduled at, is it like 10:55, I think?
10:55, yep.
Yep, 10:55 to, and that's going to be kind of a fast whirlwind session, and I'll go through it with you, kind of how that's going to be done. So, Deirdre,
Senator Lawrence,
yes,
if I may, sorry, I had my hand up.
Grahowski.
Am I permitted to present a minority report?
I think if I recall right, Deirdre, this just simply goes back with that document and a list of the votes. Is that correct?
Well, we usually do a cover memo, and if there's anything specific that somebody wanted to address, we can make a note of that. So we can say in the memo, 3 people opposed this initiative, but Representative Grahowski proposed XYZ. We're allowed to do that within there in that
And
process.
I think that's what Representative Grahowski is looking for. Representative Grahowski, are you looking to propose something less than the entire amount of money that's been moved in?
Yes, I am interested in proposing the $300,000 for support for the expenditure of the 15 million grant. And I really liked what Representative Berry had to say about authorizing the additional funds with that policy requirement that one not be able to receive Connect Main Authority funding if one does not share one's data. But I don't know if this is an appropriate place to put that in. But if it is not, then I will just move ahead with the $300,000.
So that could be put in because technically you can almost put anything into a budget. Was that Representative Berry? Was that what you were going to say?
Yeah, and just a reminder, and anyone who voted no a moment ago can might have voted no because they wanted more money put towards things. I mean, we can recommend to appropriations whatever we wish to recommend. I just for the record, Representative Grahowski, I have personally retracted that notion because I'm concerned that those who are most refusing to share the information are those who tend not to use Connect Main for its intended purposes as often.
Okay, so what we're dealing with right now are the 3 members in the minority. So I'll leave it to the 3 of you to talk to Deirdre after either on break or later today about how you want, if you want a minority recommendation to go, whether it's the 3 of you together, whether it's 3 separate recommendations, however you want to do it.
I just would like to note, if that's okay, that report back is tomorrow. So
Yeah.
I was hoping to get this drafted right after our meeting this afternoon. So,
Yep.
and I don't know, this isn't a typical work session because it's not on an LD, but in a typical LD work session, the minority report has to be sort of spoken in a
Correct.
public arena. So I don't.
And that's a good point for Nathan and Barb. If we were doing an LD, when we took the vote and somebody voted against, say a motion ought to pass, they would have to state, if they were doing ought to pass as amended, they would need to state what their amendment was at that time so people understood at the vote. But this is not an LD. This is part of a budget recommendation. So we're going to just ask that people get back to Deirdre as soon as they can after we break today. Okay, Deirdre, do you want to go on with the next item?
Sure. Let me just share my screen again. Where did it go? Oh, there we go. So this next piece, the initiative reduces funding by managing general operating expenses within available resources. And this relates to the curtailment order in the financial order that was issued by the governor. And the justification says the governor's energy office can absorb this 10% cut in funding within existing operations. So I should probably go back, and this applies to the governor's energy office. It's a curtailment of, I think it's $30,000 from their office. Sorry, trying to
And,
read.
and Deirdre, for clarification for the new members, this is from the all other line. This is not from personnel, correct?
Yes.
So normally in a budget, we will see personnel items if it deals with positions, and all other is, telephone, everything else, that office may pay. So they're essentially saying they can absorb 30,000 in non-payroll reductions. First of all, do we have a motion on that? Representative Barry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move it in.
Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Wadsworth. Any debate or discussion? Seeing none, Ben, do you want to go around the virtual horseshoe?
Absolutely. We'll start with you again, Senator.
Yes.
Representative Barry.
Yes.
Representative Cuddy.
Yes.
Representative Grochowski.
Yes.
Representative Kessler.
Yes.
Representative Ziegler.
Yes.
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative Wadsworth.
Yay.
Representative Foster.
Yes.
Representative Carlo.
Yay.
Okay, it looks like 10 members, having voted in the affirmative, none in the negative, and 3 members being absent. The motion prevails. Okay, that concludes our budget items. Is that correct? Our work
Yes.
session on the budget, Deirdre? Okay.
Yes.
So just to explain the process, Deirdre will be pulling that together. And we will allow the 3 members who voted in against the first section to add comments or clarify what their recommendations are. These are recommendations to the Appropriations Committee. This does not mean we've moved it into the appropriations budget. They need to act on this. So these are essentially our recommendations on what they do. Representative Wadsworth, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you just remind the committee with the 3 members absent and a report back due tomorrow, what would be the procedure for any absent members with the clerk to register the vote?
So, sorry, go.
Go ahead, Deirdre. I don't believe the 24 or 48-hour rule applies in this case. Is that correct?
No, for this, it's just present in voting. So it was who was here at the time the vote was taken. The absentee doesn't count. There's no time to lodge those votes after the vote.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Looks like we're right up to our break time. In fact, we're 2 minutes early. So why don't we take a break? Reminder that to mute your computers and to take your video off, and we'll be back on at 10:55 for the interested parties. Thank you. Ben, are you back on?
I'm here.
Okay, for some reason, I'm using my daughter's computer and occasionally I lose my cursor. So
Here, let me try this.
So I'm starting my video, but my cursor is still not there. So I'm going to leave it up to you to mute me and unmute me if you have to. I can see it moving around the screen, but I can't physically see it on the screen where it is.
Huh.
So she has an Apple product and I'm not used to dealing with Apple computers. So okay.
Let me mute you real quick and see if the space bar works to unmute you. Do you want to try that?
Okay.
Okay. Oh, now you're muted.
A simple reboot may help.
Yeah, do you want to close it and come back in?
I think that's his symbol for I want to talk and can you unmute me?
I can only ask you to unmute. I can't physically unmute you. I'm asking nicely. Please. Yeah. Hold on. Let me demote you and see if I can pop you
Okay, I
back
just
up.
unmuted
Yep,
you.
there you
Asked
go.
me to unmute, so I've
Okay, great.
unmuted myself.
Okay.
And for members, I do occasionally, my dog Skeet does occasionally Zoom bomb. So if he suddenly appears on the screen, I apologize.
That looked like a lot of dog.
That is a lot of dog. And he has the brain of a marshmallow, but a very sweet personality.
What kind of a dog is that, Mark?
It's a cross between an American Bulldog and a Labrador.
Oh,
They call it a Bullador.
nice.
Yeah, he's wonderful. But he is kind of has impulse control issues. So I'm going to wait a couple of minutes for Representative Barry to get back on, and Deirdre.
I'm here. I'm just going to stay off for this portion.
Okay.
Since
Thank you. Representative Wood, are you there? And Representative Barry, I'll wait for them to get back on. There's Representative Wood. And there's Representative Barry.
So Senator Lawrence, I'll probably just promote 2 or 3 at a time here and go off the master list.
Good.
Great.
So a couple of preliminary things. First of all, congratulations. You completed your first successful work session as a committee. And you'll see going around the legislature as you present bills to other committees, especially for the new members of the legislature, chairs have very different styles. There are many chairs on committees that tend to try to steer debate, discussion, and see their role as setting the agenda for the committee. My way of chairing a committee is I'm very much leave it up to the committee to determine the direction in work sessions. And I will often only recognize myself last in hearings and work sessions because I want to have the committee work the bill and work on the bill and try to come to some kind of conclusion, realizing that always a unanimous conclusion is always the best for a committee because it increases the power of the committee. The times I will interrupt is if I think somebody's getting off the point or there's something they missed that would help speed things along. The other times I will interrupt is if we get behind schedule. I'm kind of strict on keeping with the schedule and keeping on a schedule. And when we have 3 hours to do public hearings on 4 bills and the first one takes 2.5 hours, I may remind people to review their questioning and to see if we can get through all the 4 bills within the time. So we're now going to go into what we call interested parties. And this is a time for us essentially to put a name with a face. It's not really time for us to ask them questions unless there's something absolutely critical you want to ask. This is kind of rapid fire. We're asking people, giving them 3 minutes to do their presentations, and then just to present themselves, spend a little time if they want to talking about their organization, and then to quickly move on to the next person. At the end of this, we are going to have a morning session or an afternoon session on electricity issues, which we will inviting back companies and interested parties on electricity in Maine for a more detailed presentation. And that will be coming at the end of this kind of meet and greet. So with that, I'm going to invite Ben to put the first 3 people in to our participants list. And I will recognize first Amy Winston from CEI. Is she in, Ben?
On her way.
Okay. Thank you. And again, I can't move my cursor to see the participants, so I'm flying a little blind here. So Amy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry, and members of the Energy, Utility, and Technology Committee. My name is Amy Winston, and I'm the State Policy Director at Coastal Enterprises, CEI. It's a pleasure to introduce myself to you today and to give you a quick overview of CEI. About myself, I was trained as a cultural anthropologist, and my research focused on the way rural communities stay viable and sustainable. I became interested in energy and utility policy while conducting ethnographic fieldwork in a coal mining town. There they had incorporated their own power board, and they were planning renewable energy installations as the mines were closing. This experience introduced me to CDC's Community Development Corporations and led me to CEI. As a community economic development practitioner, I became very involved in food systems work, and I engaged in some legislative advocacy, and that drew me further into policy work. I have a political science background and worked at OPLA in the 126th. After that, I became a licensed social worker and a community resource navigator for the 4 towns where I live, on the peninsula where I live. And in that role, I became very familiar with CMP and LIHEAP and the arrears management program from consumer perspectives. These diverse but related experiences naturally align with CEI's mission to create an inclusive economy with healthy, sustainable communities. And as a community development financial institution, CEI fulfills this mission by financing and advising small businesses and through public policy. We work broadly in myriad sectors, including renewable energy, food systems, fisheries, manufacturing, childcare, and historic preservation, assisting businesses with financing needs, as well as operational and workforce decisions. Our business advising and technical assistance are free, and we offer loans of quite a range from microloans under 10,000 to well over 500,000. I have some general statistics, but I'm a little worried that by sharing all of those, I'm going to run out of time. So I basically want to say that our business technical assistance, our lending, and our policy work all dovetail in service of the mission. Our approach to policy is to provide a community economic development practitioner's perspective to the issues. And we advocate for state and federal policy solutions that expand economic opportunities for everyone by growing good jobs and environmentally sustainable businesses. We do most of our work with partner organizations and through networks and coalitions. And we are a member of the Maine Broadband Coalition and the Maine Solar Coalition. CEI's mission objectives and policy priorities, including in broadband, clean energy, and racial equity, dovetail and align with the state's 10-year economic development strategy and the Economic Recovery Committee's recovery roadmap, the climate action plan, and the goals of the Permanent Commission on the Status of Racial, Indigenous, and Tribal Populations. And we look forward to following the work of this committee and to weighing in on issues where we can add value to the important debates on financing clean energy and expanding broadband. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you very much, Amy. And as Amy knows, there is a 3-minute clock. I have it here in my hand. You guys can't see it. And I'm going to be kind of gentle this first time around, but especially with, thank you, Amy, with people who constantly are used to lobbying the legislature. I try to hold them to the 3-minute clock. Next, we'll go on to Robert Wood of the Nature Conservancy. Rob?
Thanks, Chair Lawrence and Chair Barry and members of the EUT committee. It's great to see you all and to see those who I know, and also to meet some new folks today. And I don't know, Chair Lawrence, if I fit into the group of people who you'll go easy on or not, but I'll try to keep it here under 3 minutes. So I'm the Director of Government Relations and Climate Policy for the Nature Conservancy in Maine. And so just a little bit about TNC, the Nature Conservancy. We are a conservation nonprofit. Our mission is to conserve the lands and waters on which all life depends. I think there are a couple of things that make us unique among conservation and environmental groups. The first is that we're doing on-the-ground conservation across kind of the range of natural resource sectors in Maine. So we are still doing a lot of land conservation. We're the 12th largest landowner in Maine. We do river and stream restoration work. So we were involved in the Penobscot River Restoration Project. Now we're doing a lot to help communities restore local streams through upgrading municipal culverts at road stream crossings. We also work with fishermen in the Gulf of Maine on sustainable fisheries and ensuring that our fisheries are science-based. And then we're also working on climate change and clean energy. And in that space, a lot of our work is at the legislature around policy advocacy. So we'll weigh in on a number of issues at the legislature this session. And then we're also doing a number of on-the-ground projects there as well, which I'll mention in just a minute. Just want to say the other thing that I think is unique about TNC is that we're part of a national and global organization. And so we really bring a lot of perspective on kind of what's happening in other states and even in other countries as well. And then in terms of the projects that I'd just like to highlight, we're working on a number of climate change and clean energy issues. We were on the Maine Climate Council, and a lot of our staff and trustees are really engaged in the Climate Council and moving that process forward. And then 3 other projects I'll mention quickly. We're helping to facilitate a stakeholder group looking at kind of grid modernization issues. So how do we make sure we have a grid that can support all the new clean energy that's coming online? And we hope to have a report that we could share publicly and with the committee, hopefully later this winter or early spring. Also, we're working on renewable energy siting issues and developing tools to help both developers and regulators and policymakers think about how to incentivize well-sited renewable energy, specifically thinking about terrestrial renewable energy development and solar siting, and hope to bring some of that perspective to the committee this session. And then lastly, I'll just mention that we are doing some work to help municipalities make the transition to clean energy. So we just kind of launched an RFP with Efficiency Maine, where we're providing enhanced incentives for small municipalities to install heat pumps and LED lighting in municipal buildings. And so we're really, really excited about that and glad to be helping communities. So I'll stop there and just say thanks so much for your time.
And it's nice to put a face with the organization. We'll go on next to Susan Eli of the Natural Resources Council of Maine, and David Costello. I don't know if David is here too as well.
Good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry, and members of the Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee. My name is Sue Ely. I'm the Climate and Clean Energy Program Staff Attorney for the Natural Resources Council of Maine, or NRCM. David Costello, I think, is on the line. We weren't sure how easy it would be to see both of our faces, so he gave me the speaking stick today. But he and I will both be working with your committee this legislative session. He joined NRCM last spring after doing quite a significant amount of work in Maryland on some comprehensive climate change planning processes. So you'll be seeing both of us this session. I really appreciate the opportunity to provide this introduction. I know these days are hard with all of the Zoom meetings, so this is a nice opportunity. NRCM was founded in 1959. We are a nonprofit organization, and our mission is dedicated to protecting, restoring, and conserving Maine's environment now and for future generations. We harness the power of law, science, and the voices of more than 25,000 supporters statewide and beyond to do our work. Our members actually live in every legislative district in Maine, and that's more than 440 Maine towns. Our physical office, even though we're not there right now, is just across the street in Augusta. But I'm actually talking to you today from North Yarmouth. Our members are active in a number of different areas. Really, the range of interests spans just about everything from healthy forests and waters to sustainability and waste reduction. But most relevant to this committee, our members really look to us to help them follow the legislative process for opportunities to speak up about the importance of bold actions to reduce global warming pollution and promote clean energy solutions in Maine. So that the issues that we find our members care deeply about as clean cars and trucks, clean and renewable energy production, and greater energy efficiency and weatherization investments. And again, these are right squarely in your wheelhouse, and we're looking forward. The list of bills this session is exciting to keep us busy. We have worked with this committee in the past, and we look forward to working with this committee going forward. Both David and I are excited for the bill titles that are out there, and we just would like to remind the committee that we are happy to be a resource to answer any questions or do any research or find information that might be useful as you're grappling with these very big issues that are in front of the committee this session. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you very much. We'll now go on to Ellen Griswold of the Maine Farmland Trust. Ellen?
Thank you. Good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, and members of the committee. My name is Ellen Griswold, and I'm the Policy and Research Director at Maine Farmland Trust. And I really appreciate this opportunity to introduce myself and provide a brief overview of MFT's work. So MFT is a member-powered statewide organization that works to protect farmland, support farmers, and advance the future of farming. Since our founding in 1999, MFT has helped to permanently protect nearly 300 farms and keep over 60,000 acres of farmland in farming, while supporting over 800 farm families with a wide range of services. Our four main program areas are farmland protection, farmland access, farm viability in the form of business planning and technical assistance to help farmers become and remain economically viable, and public outreach and policy to really grow the future of farming in Maine. We also operate a nutrition incentive program that provides additional money to low-income shoppers to buy more locally grown fruits and vegetables, which helps to also build sales for Maine farmers and keep more dollars in Maine's food economy. So for those of you who are not as familiar with agriculture, agriculture is a key component of Maine's economy, contributing over $3.6 billion in economic impact and supporting over 27,000 jobs statewide. But unfortunately, Maine's farmland, the real foundation of the agriculture sector, is a precious and limited resource. According to the 2017 USDA Census of Agriculture, between 2012 and 2017, Maine lost 10% of its farmland. That is over 145,000 acres of woodland, pastureland, and cropland. MFT supports solar energy production on farms as long as it does not significantly diminish the potential for agricultural production. MFT understands the importance of solar energy production for addressing climate change. I was happy to participate in the Maine Climate Council's Natural and Working Lands Working Group. And we also understand that on-site solar projects can really support the economic viability of a farm and help the farm reduce energy costs. But we feel very strongly that we need to ensure as a state that solar development does not result in the loss of important agricultural lands or impede farmers' ability to access the land they need for their operations. We believe solar generation and agriculture can coexist in Maine in a mutually beneficial manner, as long as we make sure that solar siting is structured to ensure the appropriate balance between those two important interests. MFT will be supporting efforts this session to incentivize the siting of solar energy projects that avoid or minimize agricultural and natural resources impacts. Although we believe farmland protection is a necessary backstop for our agricultural economy, we also understand that the best way to protect farmland is to keep farmers in business. The coronavirus pandemic has really highlighted the critical importance of high-speed internet access for farm businesses across the state. as many farms have had to increase their online business activities or pivot to using more online platforms to sell their products. So as a result, MFT will also be supporting legislation to support broadband development, and we are a proud member of the Maine Broadband Coalition. So thank you so much for this opportunity to introduce myself and provide a little bit of information about our work and our policy priorities, and I'm happy to be a resource for you all as you consider different legislative proposals.
Thank you very much, Ellen. So we will now go on to Laurie Parham, I hope I pronounced that right, of AARP Maine. Laurie?
Good morning. That was great. Good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, and members of the Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee. It's great to be with you this morning, and thanks for giving us this opportunity. I am the State Director for AARP here in Maine. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit social mission organization with more than 200,000 members across the state, 50 and older. We work on a range of energy issues at both the state and the federal level. The core principles that we approach this work with include, first, ensuring service affordability for all. Utility rates should be based on prudent use of ratepayer money. Costs and savings should be distributed fairly among consumers, and households with lower incomes must be taken into account. Securing and expanding service access for all is also critical. All consumers should have access to utility services regardless of factors such as geography, race, ethnicity, and income. We are very focused on quality. Consumers should be able to rely on high quality utility services. We also must ensure that we enhance accountability. Any changes in utility service, policy, or rate should be open and transparent to the public. The process should provide a wide range of opportunities for input from the public and from independent groups. So as you consider your work this session, we ask you to consider the following. A 2019 state government report found that Mainers living in poverty are spending up to 5 times more proportionally on their energy bills than those with higher incomes. Based on federal data compiled by the environmental consultant Synapse Energy Economics, the report said that the average Maine household with an income below the 2018 federal poverty guidelines of about $25,000 for a family of 4 spent 24% of their annual income on energy. Too many Mainers are living in what is described as energy poverty, which is when more than 6% of a household's yearly income goes towards energy bills. And so that's something that we've got to keep an eye on. I do sit on the Maine Climate Council. We believe that Maine's energy policies must balance sustainability and affordability, and that policymakers should develop sustainable energy policies that ensure an affordable supply of reliable energy. Efforts to increase the percentage of electricity produced from renewable sources should be cost effective. Sustainable energy policies should ensure all consumers can afford enough energy to meet their basic needs, and ensure subsidies targeted to those with the inability to pay for essential energy, housing, or transportation. AARP Maine is also a proud member of the Maine Broadband Coalition. Access to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet is critical to Mainers 50 and older and their families, and we've seen even more how important this is thanks to COVID-19. Affordable and reliable internet service can help older adults age in place productively and safely. It enhances access to telemedicine, civic engagement, entertainment, online learning, and other internet-based applications. And folks age 55 to 64 are the largest growing age group of our entrepreneurs. And we have seen this year, or this past year, more than any other year, the importance of the internet to our small business economy here in Maine. So thank you for the time today, just to share a little bit about our work. And we also would welcome the chance to be a resource to you and look forward to working with all of you in the weeks ahead.
Thank you very much, Laurie. We appreciate you coming by. Next, we're on to Eliza Donahue of Maine Audubon. Eliza?
Thanks so much, Chair Lawrence, Chair Berry, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself. Again, Eliza Donahue, I represent Maine Audubon. I'm their Director of Advocacy and Staff Attorney. So Maine Audubon's a Maine-based wildlife conservation nonprofit. We operate in the state with wildlife preserves as far north as Elliottsville Plantation, all the way down to Cape Elizabeth. We fulfill our mission by engaging Maine people in nature through a science-based approach to education, conservation, and advocacy. We do things like host education programs for about 8,000 students a year, preschoolers all the way up to adults. We work collaboratively with federal and state wildlife agencies to conserve endangered species. And the work I do, which is advocating primarily at the state level, little federal too, on policies that support wildlife and habitat, among many other programs. I'm anticipating coming before this committee this session, maybe a little bit more than past sessions, primarily to talk about balancing renewable energy development with natural resource and community land use needs. As you've heard from others before us, we're a really strong supporter of significantly building out Maine's renewable energy portfolio and infrastructure, from solar to on and offshore wind and all the associated transmission. But to meet Maine's emission reduction goals, we're gonna need a lot of that stuff, meaning that we're gonna need to be really thoughtful about where we put it. Over the past couple of years in particular, Maine Audubon's doing a lot of work getting municipalities in particular excited about solar and ready to welcome solar to their community in a manner that balances the land use with their community's other needs and values. You know, we've published a lot of documents such as best practices, some FAQs, but probably what's gotten the most airtime is a draft, a model solar siting ordinance that has been used, you know, quite widely across the state to help municipalities plan for siting solar in their community. I think I heard from one of my coworkers that even last night, the Freeport Planning Board was using that ordinance as they were considering how to incorporate solar into their planning documents. So now we're thinking about policy, how we can kind of take what we've learned in our outreach and a lot of our kind of on the ground work to craft policy that can give a leg up to projects that are particularly thoughtful about their location, as well as projects that are thoughtfully managed and operated. Again, that's what we'll be focusing on this session. I encourage folks to take a look at today's Portland Press Herald, where they published an op-ed from myself and Ellen Griswold at Maine Farmland Trust. Fortuitous timing. Check it out. That came out today, and is a good kind of encapsulation of how we're thinking about this work. So in addition to terrestrial energy development, we're thinking a lot about offshore wind. Maine Audubon's really excited about the proposed research array. See it as a real opportunity to learn about co-location of floating offshore wind with existing uses, including wildlife impacts, where there's really, we just don't have a lot of information. So again, really excited, and I'm involved in the research array.
Good, thank you, Eliza. We're a little bit over time.
Awesome.
So
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are now on to Anya Fetcher, and I hope I pronounced that right. Let me get my other list back up. Of Environment Maine. Anya?
Yes, hi, and you did get that right. Thank you. Good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself and my organization today. My name is Anya Fetcher. I'm the State Director for Environment Maine. Environment Maine is a statewide, nonprofit, citizen-based environmental advocacy organization. We work to protect the places in Maine that we love, promote the environmental values we share, such as clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and clean energy to power our lives. And we win tangible improvements in the quality of our environment and our lives. Environment Maine's mission is to transform the power of our ideas into change that makes our world a greener and healthier place for all. And we represent our thousands of members across the state who share a belief that there is something special about Maine, something that is worth protecting. Our staff research the challenges confronting our environment and advocate for solutions. So through research reports, media work, webinars, and trainings, we educate the public about what's at stake and what can be done. Our organizers meet people where they are. In past years, we may have actually knocked on your door, though unfortunately didn't get around to it this past summer. And we work to raise awareness and recruit new supporters and activists to join the movement. We're part of a national network, Environment America. We have state directors in 29 states across the country, and we work with the idea that collective action in the states can lead to change on an even larger scale. So this also means that I have access to and knowledge about how policies are progressing in other states, which can be very helpful when looking for model bills to bring here in Maine. As a citizen-based organization, we look to our members to help guide our priorities and campaigns. So our priorities right now include putting wildlife over waste by continuing Maine's progress towards zero waste and implementing producer responsibility for packaging. We're very focused on passing legislation which aligns with the Maine Climate Action Plan to reduce pollution and carbon emissions and slow global warming, specifically looking at expanding clean energy policy with solar and wind energy options. We are also very excited about the offshore wind array, research array that is in the works. And we're of course also very interested in protecting wildlife and Maine's natural spaces and working to stop the use of bee-killing pesticides and also make sure that we are fully funded for the Land for Maine's Future program. So I look forward to working with you all, and I would love to offer myself as a resource to you. So please reach out anytime. And thanks again for your time.
Thank you very much. So we're on to our next speaker, and that will be Anna Siegel of Maine Strikes and Maine Youth for Climate Justice. Anna?
Hello, my name is Anna Siegel. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a young climate activist going to school in Portland, Maine. I am the co-organizing director of Maine Strikes and a core member of the statewide coalition, Maine Youth for Climate Justice. Maine Strikes focuses on campaign-centered advocacy. Our goal is to be radical and bold in the fight for intersectional climate justice. We serve the youth of our state as we empower them to take action and find their voice, but also serve the people of Maine by working to create a more stable and equitable future for all. Maine Youth for Climate Justice, or MYCJ, is a coalition connecting hundreds of youth activists across Maine to be in a community and organize. MYCJ was and continues to be engaged with the Maine Climate Council, with myself and other youth representatives on various working groups, a rep on the council itself, and representation on the Equity Subcommittee. As the co-organizing director of Maine Strikes, I am focused on campaigns, including legislative work. Others engaged in MYCJ, more names for faces, on that front are Andrew Blunt, on your right, Josh Wood, Julia St. Clair, and many others. Our legislative priorities include, but are not limited to, the initiation of a consumer-owned utility, the incorporation of a state green bank, the Maine Public Employees Retirement System divesting from fossil fuels, efficient rail and public transportation, the retrofitting of homes, the sustainable management of natural lands and farms, equitable environmental law for those marginalized and most affected by the climate crisis, and rapid decarbonization and transition to renewables across all sectors. I also encourage you to reach out anytime if you have any questions. We love hearing from you. We love doing this legislative work. So thank you so much for your time and work and for listening to me today.
Thank you very much, Anna. And now we're next on to Matthew Cannon of Sierra Club, Maine.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, and members of the Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Technology. My name is Matt Cannon. I'm the Campaign and Policy Associate Director at Sierra Club, Maine. Founded in 1892, Sierra Club is one of the oldest and largest environmental organizations. We amplify the power of our 3.8 million members and supporters to defend everyone's right to a healthy world. At the Maine chapter, we represent over 22,000 members and supporters. We are a grassroots organization and rely on active volunteers, some of which are involved with MYCJ, like Anna just mentioned. In my role, I help coordinate our climate, energy, and conservation priorities and lead our volunteer legislative team, empowering individuals to participate in our government. We also help mobilize our network and the public to comment on critical issues. Additionally, I work with Sierra Club's Beyond Coal campaign on building electrification, offshore wind, and ISO New England reform. This session, you'll be hearing from me and our active volunteer leaders from across the state and across the age spectrum, including our team leader, Jonathan Fulford, lobbyist Bob Howe, Vice Chair David Gibson, and Chapter Director Sarah Layton. In the past session, we were most active around creating a renewable energy economy and creating the Climate Council. This year, we expect to work with the EUT committee on building electrification, grid decarbonization, and PUC and utility reform, including consumer ownership. Like my colleagues, I'm happy to be a resource. I'm lucky to work both with experienced leaders in Maine and across the country. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to the session.
Thank you, Matt. And we're now moving on to Beth Ahern of the Maine Conservation Voters. Beth?
Good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, and members of the Energy, Utility, and Technology Committee. It's so lovely to see you, and I have to say, I really do miss seeing you tremendously in person, but it is good to see you virtually, at least. So my name is Beth Ahern. I am the Director of Government Affairs for Maine Conservation Voters. And we do three basic things at Maine Conservation Voters. We work to get conservationists like you elected to office. We work to craft public policy, specifically in the climate change, clean energy, democracy, and racial equity arenas. And we also produce a scorecard every year. So hopefully the other thing that we do is convene the Environmental Priorities Coalition, which I think you've heard about. It's a group of, it's a coalition of 32 public health, environmental, and conservation organizations that get together every year and decide upon a common agenda. And I hope you all received a mailing about those environmental priorities. There's a list of 9, 4 of them are climate related this year. And I believe that 2 of them are going to come to your committee. You never know where they're going to go, but one of them is to align state agencies with climate requirements. The goal of this bill would be to reform enabling statutes that would empower regulators to consider emissions reductions and environmental justice as well as costs in their decision making. That is sponsored by Representative Judera, who sadly has moved on to, well, not sadly, but it's wonderful that she's on the Environment and Natural Resources Committee, but we miss seeing her here. And the other bill is sponsored by Representative Ziegler to establish a green energy accelerator to finance climate solutions. The accelerator, sometimes known as a green bank, makes it easier to finance projects, clean energy projects by standardizing the lending process, reducing risks for local lenders, lowering interest rates, and leveraging public and private investment. So those bills have not been printed yet, but again, I think that they're coming to you, and I will be coming before you on behalf of the Environmental Priorities Coalition to try to get those over the finish line. Mostly what I want you to hear this morning is that as the generalist that I am and the representative of the Environmental Priorities Coalition, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. If I don't know the answer, I can connect you with someone who does across our broad coalition. I see myself sometimes as the old-fashioned switchboard operator. Some of you probably don't even know what that is, but anyway, I connect myself. I can connect you to whoever you need to get your question answered. And My cell phone is in my email address, but I'm going to say it right now so that you can have me. 671-5071. So
Thank you.
thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Great. We'll now go on to Jeff Marks of Acadia Center. Jeff?
Good morning, and thank you, Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry, and members of the EUT committee for the opportunity to meet you all via Zoom this morning. Acadia Center is a nonprofit research and advocacy organization. We actually started right here in Maine, but we have advocates and issue experts throughout the Northeast, and we really take a regional perspective on a lot of these energy and climate issues and try to come up with solutions that work not just for the state, but for the region as a whole. We tackle really complex problems, and the issues that you're going to be facing as a committee are going to be extremely complex at times. We try to come up with clear recommendations for reforms and advocate to create that change that supports a low carbon economy, which can be a model for application elsewhere, such as in other states. Our goal is really to reduce carbon pollution and improve quality of life throughout the northeastern U.S. And we work with many of the organizations that you're meeting and greeting today, both individually and through coalition advocacy and outreach. And Beth Ahern just mentioned the Environmental Priorities Coalition, and we're going to be working with that coalition on the two bills and others that she mentioned. So like everybody before me and probably everybody after me today, we want to be a resource for the committee to help advance legislation that expands clean energy systems so that the state transitions to a healthier, more equitable, clean energy future. Some of those issues include, substantial increases in beneficial electrification, including electric vehicles and residential heat pumps, increased weatherization, especially for low-income and rural households. We're looking to phase in more modern energy-efficient building codes to reach net zero carbon emissions for new construction and hopefully incorporate mass timber and wood fiber insulation into new building structures. And we're looking for regulatory and utility innovation reforms so that both government and utilities consider climate equity and other issues in their planning and decision making. So thank you for the opportunity to talk this morning, and looking forward to working with all of you during this very interesting legislative session.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeff. And next we're on to Nick Batista, and I hope I pronounced that right, of the Island Institute. Nick?
Hello, Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry, members of the committee. My name is Nick Batista, Senior Policy Officer at the Island Institute. Island Institute's a 37-year-old nonprofit organization based in Rockland, Maine. We work to sustain Maine's island and coastal communities and are committed to a just, resilient, and vibrant future for the coast of Maine. We work in partnership with courageous leaders to support resilient communities and confront a changing world. Our community development work focuses on the marine economy, climate and energy pilots, small business, education, and leadership. Broadband's foundational to all of this work, and all Mainers really need the ability to use high-speed, reliable internet. Island Institute's part of the Maine Broadband Coalition that a few others have referenced this morning. In my spare time, I'm also the chair of the Connect Maine Authority Board. When I'm before this committee, I'll try to be clear on which hat I'm wearing. Island Institute participated in the Climate Council process. We had staff on 3 working groups: building, housing, and infrastructure, coastal and marine, and community resilience planning. We also had a staff member on the Science and Technical Subcommittee, and my colleague Suzanne McDonald was just named to the Equity Subcommittee of the Climate Council. She participated in the equity assessment and has long been a champion for including rural communities in policy design and implementation. She's on the Efficiency Maine Trust Board, and she'll be before you next week for a confirmation for her reappointment. Island Institutes will be before this committee in two different areas, 2 different topics. One is energy related work. We're supporting island and remote communities in energy transitions and supporting working waterfront businesses and engaging in clean energy projects. And so on the community transition side, we recently received a 3-year, $300,000 grant from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory to provide technical assistance support to communities, island and remote communities who are looking at energy transitions and connect them with NREL's resources. We're working with partners in Alaska, Hawaii, North Carolina, and elsewhere on that. This will be communities going through this process for a year's worth of NREL technical assistance and support to hopefully move some of their work forward. We're also working to support marine decarbonization work, sharing stories about businesses on the working waterfront who are going solar or otherwise implementing clean energy projects and looking at greenhouse gas mitigation work across the value chain for the marine economy. We're generally concerned about rural communities being included in various pieces of the Climate Council implementation and various clean energy projects. Shifting gears, the other place we might talk to you a little bit about is broadband. As you know, 83,000 Maine households don't have access to high-speed internet. It's extremely important to daily life for doing all of the things that we do. Island Institute's broadband team has supported 81 coastal and island communities, as well as several communities further inland. And we know that solutions to community broadband challenges hinge on statewide efforts. Our coastal community partners have leveraged about $4.6 million in state and federal funding.
Asking Nick to kind of wrap it up because we're beyond the 3 minutes.
And I look forward to talking with you a lot more about broadband as we get into the session. So
great. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick. We're now on to Matt, and I hope I pronounced this right, Schlobon of the Maine AFL-CIO. Matt?
You got it correct. Good afternoon, good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry, and members of the committee. My name is Matt Schlobon. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine AFL-CIO. We're a statewide federation of 160 local unions representing 40,000 working men and women across all sectors of Maine's economy. I served on the Climate Council and also on the Governor's Economic Recovery Committee and spend a lot of time trying to think about the intersection of our energy future and our climate future and our economy. Our affiliate unions represent workers in a lot of the sectors and a lot of the issues that you deal with: telecom, the utilities, the construction side, building out the solar and clean energy economy. And I think the first plug and ask I would make is just to include the perspective of workers as you're crafting policy, the folks who do the work day in and day out, whether it's building out our broadband infrastructure, running our utilities, installing solar panels, are key voices in getting policy right. We've been doing a lot of work to build out and develop the labor movement's vision for how to tackle the climate crisis in a way that takes the science very seriously and thinks very seriously about how we build high quality jobs in the clean energy and energy efficiency economies. We start by reframing that crisis as both a climate crisis and an inequality crisis, and believe strongly we have to tackle those two things together. I think we know the existential threats of climate change and know what the science tells us. And we think it's important to couple that with the recognition that 45% of Mainers cannot afford an emergency $400 bill. So if their car, if they have a car repair, if their water pump breaks, they are in a world of economic insecurity. We know that inequality has only been exacerbated in the pandemic, and it cuts sharper along lines of gender and race and immigration status. And we also know, of course, that it's bad economics in an economy where 70% of our economic growth is driven by consumer spending. And so I think the intersection here for all of you, and that we're excited to partner on, is as we are building out new sectors of our economy and our clean energy economy, and as the governor has put forward bold, ambitious goals to double the number of clean energy and energy efficiency jobs to 30,000 by 2030, how do we think very carefully and strategically to make those high quality family sustaining jobs. And we're of the school of thought that good jobs don't fall from the sky. They often come about through decades of struggle and really correlate with bargaining power that workers actually have. And that usually happens through either one of three ways: unions and a formal collective bargaining process, public policy, or tight labor markets. And I think it's fair to assume we're not going to see tight labor markets in most sectors for a while to come. So the public policy space becomes very important. And we would just ask and encourage and look forward to partnering to think about what are the job quality standard components, what are the labor standard components, what are the workforce training components that we need to think about together as climate and energy, other policy matters come before you. I think there's a lot of tools in the toolbox to utilize there, whether it's
just about at the end, Matt.
Okay, super. So anyway, a lot of tools in the toolbox to work on those things, and we look forward to partnering with you in that work.
Thank you. And next we're on to, and I think everybody's intentionally giving me difficult names to pronounce. Today, we're on to Eric Venturini, I believe, of the Wild Blueberry Commission of Maine.
You nailed it, Senator Lawrence, and thank you for your time, Senator Lawrence and Representative Barry and members of the Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Technology. My name is Eric Venturini. I'm a two-time graduate of the University of Maine, probably like many of you, and I'm a resident of Orono today. I come from a background of natural resources management, earned my graduate degree at UMaine studying pollinators in Maine's wild blueberry fields. And for the last several years, I worked with the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, also here in Maine. For almost exactly 1 year now, I've served as the executive director of the Wild Blueberry Commission of Maine, as the voice of Maine's farms and businesses. The Wild Blueberry Commission is comprised of 5 grower representatives and 5 processor representatives, and we're dedicated to conserving and promoting the wild blueberry industry of Maine. To that end, we're heavily involved in promotional work. We're staunch supporters of the University of Maine's research and extension capabilities, and we represent Maine's wild blueberry farmers and businesses in state and federal policy. Addressing climate change challenges is a top priority of the Wild Blueberry Commission. And it's no surprise considering that this year we lost about 50% of our crop to a combination of factors that first and foremost included this year's climate change induced drought. The wild blueberry industry in Maine is made up of almost 485 farmers harvesting wild blueberries on almost 38,000 acres across the state. We produce anywhere from 50 to 100 million pounds per year. Production is statewide, but is concentrated in the Down East and the Mid-Coast regions. Like many businesses, access to high-speed, reliable internet is increasingly important for our industry to be able to remain competitive, and is also important to one of the Commission's most recent programs that relies on our growers' access to internet, which is, of course, sorely lacking, especially in Maine's rural counties. Overall, through direct and indirect contributions to the state, our industry is responsible for $250 million worth of economic activity each year. These farms are more often than not first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh generation farms that have been sometimes in business for more than 150 years. Our farmers are an economic engine for the state, but they're also an iconic piece of Maine's heritage and Maine's future. Wild blueberries are never planted, they're just managed where they grow. A truly wild plant, managing and harvesting this renewable resource sustainably. Please reach out to me as a resource. And if I don't have the information that you need, of course, I will connect you with a wild blueberry farmer or business who does. The Wild Blueberry Commission is also a member of the Agricultural Council of Maine, the Natural Resource Network, the Maine Farm Bureau, the Board of Agriculture, and we do also work with Kim Cook, and you may see her representing the wild blueberry industry from time to time. Thank you, Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry, and esteemed members of the committee for your time.
Thank you very much, Eric. And now we go on to Julie Rosenbach, the Sustainability Director for the City of South Portland. Julie?
Thank you, Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry, and members of the committee. Good morning. Thank you for holding this session. I am enjoying listening to everybody else. Some I know very well, and others I'm just hearing a lot about, so it's very informative. I just want to take my 3 minutes to introduce myself and what we're doing in South Portland. So as you mentioned, I'm the Sustainability Director for the City of South Portland. I've been in this position for about 5.5 years now. Prior to this position, I started my career. I've been working in the field of sustainability for like over 20 years now. I started my career in working at the Environmental Protection Agency in Washington, D.C., and I moved to Maine and worked for a private college here in Maine. And then when they created this position for the city of South Portland, I accepted this position, and it's been a great move. I absolutely love working for the city. As you may likely know, our city council is very excited about being as sustainable a community as possible. I want to mention that I'm one of maybe 4 or 5 sustainability professionals in municipal government in the state of Maine, although nationwide there's a large and growing network of sustainability directors for municipalities. And so it's a really growing field. And there are a lot of parallels between when I started at the college I was working at. It was a brand new position there and a young field for the university and college sector. And now almost everyone has one. It's also, I'm hoping, a growing sector for municipalities. I am here to talk a little bit about our One Climate Future plan that we partnered with Portland on. If you're not familiar with it, we've done a lot of work in partnership with Portland. I work very closely with my counterpart, Troy Moon, who's a sustainability director there. And we got together first to do joint landfill projects when doing landfill projects was extremely difficult under the old legislation, and the new policy that was passed last year has been extremely helpful, although I think there's still a lot more work to do on solar. We got together, both of our cities adopted the same climate goals that are in line with Maine's climate goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2050. We also adopted 2 city goals to lead the way, committing to run municipal operations 100% clean renewable energy by 2040. So we have a lot of work in front of us. We just passed our One Climate Future plan. It's the first, as far as we know, it's the first in the nation plan that 2 cities have gotten together and done one plan. And so it's really innovative. And because of that, we got really high quality consultants to help us work on this plan. Our plan has 4 key areas, and that is based on our greenhouse gas emissions inventory. So it's buildings and energy, transportation and land use, waste reduction, and adaptation and resiliency. Unlike the state of Maine, our greenhouse gas emissions come 67% from buildings and energy, and about 1/3 from transportation. But like the state, these are our top 2 areas to transition from fossil fuels into electrification. Our plan has 68 strategies with subcomponents and a timeline, and it's very action oriented. And there's a lot in our plan that relies on either removing barriers at the state level, enabling legislation, and certainly partnerships at every single level with all the organizations and community groups we can. Our areas of interest.
We are over 3 minutes, so I'd ask you just to wrap up.
Sorry, our areas of interest are just around renewable energy, energy financing, weatherization, and energy data. And so I hope to speak with you more throughout your session. Great. Apologies for going over.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we are now on to Sean Mahoney of the Conservation Law Foundation. Sean?
Thank you, Chair Lawrence and Chair Barry and members of the EUT. And I would say, Chair Lawrence, that you were getting all the names right, but it's Sean, not Sean. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just fooling. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Conservation Law Foundation. We have an office down in Portland, and I'm talking to you from my home in Falmouth this morning. I appreciate your time this morning, and as Julie just said, it's been interesting to listen to all the folks who have come so far. We haven't, sorry about that. We haven't been in front of your committee or really in the legislature that much over the last few years, but expect to this year. So we're looking forward to working with you all, with your colleagues at ENR and some of the other committees. CLF is a regional environmental advocacy organization. We have about 100 people across the New England states, 7 of us here in Maine. And our largest program is our Clean Energy and Climate program. So obviously the work that you do is very important to that. Our focus is being an advocate for our states and our regulatory bodies and our utilities to move to the next phase of the clean energy transformation, including mandatory emissions reductions, where Maine has been a leader in New England and the country. Part of that transformation is with institutions. Regionally, we do a lot of work at ISO New England. We're also in front of our own PUC as well as other state PUCs. And we feel a real need through governance and market and other reforms to push those entities to push our utilities and the market to shift to more of a consumer focus that focuses on creating a clean energy grid for the future. We are tied to a regional grid, and our fate is closely linked to that grid. Our fate here in Maine is closely linked to that grid. As we saw in today's paper, issues such as interconnection for new renewable resources is a huge problem. And we need to be pushing utilities and the ISO New England to make the reforms necessary to provide adequate interconnection capacity for one position, or for other issues such as incentives for efficiency, time of use practices, and the like. Overlying all of this is a commitment to ensure that these institutions and the climate movement itself, which we're part of, accounts for every Mainer, as Matt Schlobohm was talking about, and that this transformation is just and inclusive. And we're committed to doing that and look forward to working with you all in the upcoming session. And thank you for your service.
Great. Thank you very much, Sean. So we are now on to Brad Sawyer of the Maine Rural Water Association. Brad?
Perfect job, Senator Lawrence. Thank you very much, Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry. My name is, and other members of the committee, my name is Brad Sawyer, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Maine Rural Water Association. Our office is in Representative Barry's district in Richmond, and I'm coming to you today from about half a mile away from the State House, my home in Augusta. The Maine Rural Water Association is a nonprofit association representing just under 300 water and wastewater systems across the state. Our membership spans from the smallest water districts with 10 to 20 connections up to some of the largest utilities in the state with thousands of water and sewer connections. That being said, we assist all utilities in our industry, and last year visited 529 systems and spent almost 2,800 hours on site. We have a statewide policy committee that provide guidance and information to rural water staff on legislative and regulatory issues. It's important to note that the vast majority of these utilities in Maine are municipal or quasi-municipal and are responsible solely to their ratepayers and not the pursuit of profit. We call them ratepayers, you call them taxpayers. I assure you they are the same people and their wallets are the same. Maine Rural Water has a full-time staff of 17 and provide technical assistance to, training for, and advocacy on behalf of the entire industry. Our training slate is quite robust. In 2020, despite the pandemic, we were able to hold 90 trainings, both in person and virtual, and accounted for over 2,400 classes taken by operators, staff members, and members of the utilities boards. We're also a leading partner in technical assistance for water and wastewater utilities. Through our Circuit Rider program, we're able to assist utilities in real time as they deal with issues such as leak detection, pipe and valve repair, wastewater lab testing, regulatory compliance, financial services, and all aspects of running a utility. While some of these issues sound mundane, I assure you that they can threaten the safety and quality of drinking water and pose hazards to the environment that none of us want to see happen. Our members take their charge to protect the health, safety, and future viability of Maine's natural resources incredibly seriously. We also have staff that help with source water protection programs that identify potential issues and help conserve drinking water for future generations. In short, we're here to advocate for the hundreds of water and wastewater utilities in our state and the hundreds of thousands of ratepayers that they serve. We'll be in front of this committee, everything regarding changes in the PUC, PFAS issues, any contaminants that come up, and lots of other regulatory issues.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are now on to Tim Wade of the Maine Water Environment Association. Is that right? Do I have that right, Tim?
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, you're all set. Go ahead.
I think I have the honor of being the last person to say good morning. Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry, and honorable members of the Joint Standing Committee. It might be about 10 seconds late on that. Good morning now, though. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Tim Wade. I am the operations manager at the Greater Augusta Utility District, where we are responsible for the drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater systems in and around Augusta and the surrounding communities. And I'm here today representing the Maine Water Environment Association as its second vice president and chair of our government affairs committee. MWIA is an all-volunteer, not-for-profit association of over 650 members, consisting of municipal and industrial wastewater operators, consultants, students, and regulatory officials.
Tim, I'm just going to interrupt for a moment and see if there's anything that you can do to improve the sound quality. We are having a hard time hearing you. It sounds like your water and wastewater operations are in full tilt right in your office there. I don't know if there's like a fan or something obstructing your mic, but it is a little hard to make out what you're saying.
Is that any better, Representative Barry?
Yeah, that's much good. Better. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize. I opened my laptop, so you may be looking at the side of my face now. The webcam apparently doesn't have such a great mic. Let me just start with, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Tim Wade. I'm the operations manager at the Greater Augusta Utility District. And I'm here today to represent MWIA, Maine Water Environment Association, as both its second vice president and the chair to our government affairs committee. MWIA is an all-volunteer, not-for-profit association of over 650 members, consisting of municipal and industrial wastewater operators, consultants, students, and regulatory officials. MWIA represents over 95 wastewater treatment plants serving over 125 communities throughout our state. Our association represents frontline essential workers that operate and maintain infrastructure that is the backbone of many or most other essential services. We work actively to educate the public, the ratepayers, elected officials such as yourself, and other stakeholders on many of the critical environmental issues that affect Maine's water environments, our public health, and our economy. The mission of the Maine Water Environment Association is to support and enhance Maine's water environment community. In order to achieve this, we focus on promoting training opportunities for the water environment community. We support balanced environmental policy and practice. We promote education and collaboration with the public to protect and enhance Maine's water resources. And we foster a strong and resilient water environment community. MWIA has been tracking and preparing testimony for multiple bills, some likely to be considered by your committee. PFAS limits and treatment, nutrient limits, and COVID-19 vaccination schedules are a few of the most important issues to our association currently. You may hear from other members of our Executive Board and Government Affairs Committee in testimony throughout this session. The Maine Water Environment Association works closely with other water associations, including Maine Water Utilities Association and the Maine Rural Water Association. You just heard from Brad, and you'll hear from Steve shortly. We also work with Jim Cohen and his team at Veril Dana. When it makes sense, we have had and likely will provide joint testimony. I would also like to acknowledge and thank a few of this committee's members who attended our recent legislative breakfast hosted by both MWEA and Maine Water Utilities. Albeit a virtual breakfast this year, we had a good turnout and hope to be back at the Senator again next year with a non-virtual breakfast offering. One key takeaway from this year's breakfast was the infrastructure report card presented by the American Society of Civil Engineers. This report highlights the critical state of some of our infrastructure and treatment facilities in Maine. I'd like to thank the chairs and the committee for the opportunity to introduce MWEA today. We look forward to working with you this session and invite you to use us as a resource as you consider legislation involving water quality and wastewater systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. And now we're on to Jim Cohen from Veril and Dana. Jim?
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jim Cohen, and I am an attorney with Veril Dana. I'm pleased to be now in my 30th year of practice, which is a number that astounds me, and I've been appearing in front of this committee. I think this may be my 27th year. It was great to see Tim Wade a moment ago. I had the honor of serving as moderator of the legislative information session 2 days ago with both Maine Water Utilities Association and Maine Water Environment Association, both of whom I've worked with for quite some time. I am a utility lawyer. I work in the area of public water and wastewater systems, on the electricity side, on the natural gas side, as well as telecommunications. So you may see me from time to time show up on behalf of Verizon, talking about wireless issues. Also working with Unitil this year on subjects like renewable natural gas. Also working with Borrego Solar and Soltage on issues of net energy billing and renewable energy. And you may see me from time to time on behalf of Avangrid on the subject of a state power authority, as well as Maine Water Company. So a lot of opportunities to work with the committee. We have a great team at Veril. I serve as chair of our energy, telecommunications, and natural resources group. We do a lot of work permitting solar facilities, wind facilities. Our team also includes Main Street Solutions. So if you know folks from our government relations team like Mike Saxel, Jay Nutting, Sarah Vanderwood, Clara McConnell, and Bobby Reynolds, all of whom may from time to time work with all of you. I appreciate your public service. I had the opportunity to serve on the Portland City Council for 6 years, 1 year as mayor. During that time, I did focus a lot on sustainability issues, including being the first mayor in Maine to sign on to the U.S. Conference of Mayors Climate Action Plan and had a program called Sustainable Portland, which I was very proud of. And I'd be happy to work with any of you on any issues. I'm a bit of a policy wonk, so happy at any time to share thoughts and ideas with you. So I appreciate the time today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim. And we now go on to Stephen Cox of the Kennebunkport and Wells Water District, and it was also with the Maine Water Utilities Association. Steve?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Lawrence. That's a mouthful, isn't it?
It is.
We like to call it KKW. So thank you, Chair and Chair Barry and the rest of the committee. I'm the general manager of KKW. I also happen to be a trustee of a small water district in Bodenham. I have nearly 30 years experience in the water industry, and it all happens to be right here in Maine. 9 years of it as a consulting engineer, over 17 years in operations and engineering in an investor-owned utility, And now I've got 2 years as the manager of KKW, which, by the way, is the second largest consumer-owned utility in Maine. I am the past president of Maine Water Utilities Association and a 3-time participant in the American Water Works annual fly-in to our nation's capital, where we discuss the water issues with our Maine delegates. And that's been very beneficial for our state. I'm here today really representing Maine Water Utilities Association. The Maine Water Utilities Association was formed in 1925 as a member-driven organization. We represent 109 water utilities serving more than 650,000 Maine residents. And we're here because we seek the support of legislators in the creation and promotion of public policies that include the following: protection of our sources of drinking water, enabling us utilities to maintain rights and access to sources of drinking water, recognize the essential nature of our work and of our employees, dedicate state funding to support a replacement of our aging infrastructure, and to maintain an appropriate balance between, regulation and the local control. And more important, sometimes it's to avoid unintended consequences of legislation that was never intended to impact public water utilities. As Tim and Brad said earlier, we try to work closely with their 2 associations and will provide joint testimony at times. Representatives from our association that you may see, Bruce Berger, he is our executive director. And then we have a number of members of our legislative committee. Roger Kraus from Waterville is the chair. David Parent from Sanford is heavily engaged. And you'll likely see Dan Wells from Winthrop and Andy Began or parts of his team from Greater Augusta. Jim Cohen, who we just heard speak, and his team also assist us in monitoring our bills and testifying on our behalf. So I'd like to say I want to be a resource for any of you to get an open, honest look under the hood of water utilities. I'm certain I may not have the answers to all your questions, but I am confident I will assemble the science and expertise so that you can make informed decisions. As you look behind me, I've got the banner of our 100-year anniversary here at KKW. And it was interesting as I was researching through our original charter, it was signed by Governor Percival Baxter. Really neat piece of information there. So thank you for your time and appreciate all you do.
Thank you very much. And last but not least today is Bill Bell, who is here from the Maine Pellet Fuels Association. Bill? You need to turn on your mic.
Pressing the space.
Oh, you pressed it twice.
I'll just keep
there
it
you
on.
Go.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, members of the committee. My name is Bill Bell. I reside in Saco, and I'm the executive director of the Maine Pellet Fuels Association. And thank you, Deirdre Snyder, for fitting me in today when it became apparent I was not going to be available next week. The Maine Pellet Fuels Association is a standard trade association. We have the 4 pellet manufacturers in Maine, which are in Sanford, Strong, Corinth, and Presque Isle and Athens. There was one in Corinth, which has ceased operation several years ago. We also have a major pellet equipment manufacturing company in Bethel, which is also the national distributor for that firm. I want to particularly thank this committee for your foresight last year when you were extending and greatly strengthening the renewable energy credit program, for also creating a credit for renewable thermal energy. This is incredibly important to us. That, along with the legislation passed at the very end of last year in Congress, the special finance measure at the end of the year included, at the urging of Senators King and Collins and our congressional delegation, a provision to give our industry the same tax credits which have long been accorded to wind, solar, and other renewable energies. Our legislative counsel is Adam Cody, who will be with you at times. And we also include a number of the usual vendors to trade associations, principals, trucking companies, equipment installers, and also as a member, the professional logging contractors of Maine, who I think will be in front of you later. I have a very simple message. I've listened, and our association took considerable part in the Maine Climate Council meetings over this past summer and fall. And we commend the council for having very ambitious and far-reaching outlook. Most of that, as you are aware, is built around electrification, or not most of it, but two of the key items are built around electrification of vehicles and electrification of home heating through heat pumps. And that's fine, we understand that. I have a heat pump in my home, or several heat pumps in my home, but please, as you go all in on beneficial electrification, you should also look to all of the above. Inevitably, in any big all-in project, problems will arise, and we certainly regret to see the problems with solar installs that were outlined in the paper this morning. So people need, particularly in rural areas without natural gas, you need us as an alternative technology. And what we do works.
We're at the 3-minute mark, Bill.
Okay, and I will yield the rest of my time to your luncheon. And thank you for listening very much, and we wish you the best in your work.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bill. So we're at the end of today, and we've heard from 22 different interested parties. Anything to wrap up, Representative Berry? Sorry to insult you there.
Thank you for that important correction. And no, nothing. Great job today, everyone.
Great. And I just want to particularly thank Deirdre and Ben. This is a huge amount of work to pull together all these presentations. I forget what Deirdre told me, but I think we have close to 90, between 60 to 90 interested parties who come before our committee. So we are one of the most heavily lobbied committees in the legislature. And it's a lot of work for Deirdre to put this together, a lot of work for Ben to kind of bring them in and out of our Zoom in a very smooth fashion. So I appreciate that. A reminder, Tuesday is our first confirmation session. So, and confirmation sessions are different than work sessions, are different than public hearings. Deirdre will not be joining us. She will be listening. But Ben will be running the hearing. And the reason why Deirdre doesn't join is this is a separate function. It's almost an executive function of the legislature, replaces what used to be the executive council. And a reminder about the process, we have a very specific statutory process to follow. There will be a script I read through. In there, there is a time we have to break for 15 minutes to allow comments to be made unless it's waived by the committee. So I will go through that whole process as we do it. The confirmation process is the compromise between the Senate and the House and the executive on abolition of the executive council was that the committee of jurisdiction would hear the individual and would make a recommendation to the Senate. Because the committees, as I mentioned, are majority House members, it then takes a 2/3 vote by the Senate to overturn the committee's recommendation. So the unusual process in the Senate is, shall the confirmation of so-and-so be overturned? If you're in favor of the person, you actually are voting no, not to overturn the committee's recommendation. So you're going to see a unique part of the Maine legislature on Tuesday. Nicole, I saw your hand up briefly. Did you have anything?
Thank you. I did want to say thank you to Deirdre and to Ben for coordinating, because it really helps us to not have to have individual meetings with every single interested party and schedule those on our own. So I think this was very efficient. I'm appreciative to our chairs for allowing this opportunity as well. I think it was just a great overview, and better than just having to read every email that comes in. So much appreciated.
Great. And we have tried to lump them together by subject matter. So this was kind of the I don't know, what would you describe it as? The citizens organizations. Deirdre, I forget if we put a title to this.
I think it was the public interest organizations.
Yep. So we'll hear from the public interest organizations. A couple Deirdre had to switch around to get people in because of the schedule, but we're going to hear from electricity, from gas, from all different types of organizations. And we've tried to lump them together as much as possible. So I don't want you to get the impression that we only hear from these similar groups to this. We're going to hear a lot of different sectors as we go through and complete this. Any other thoughts, comments, questions before we adjourn? Okay, so we will be back here at Tuesday at 9 o'clock. We'll see you all later.
Have a